Greetings, one and all, to the most cursed, most cringiest corner of the internet. A YouTube channel content creator actively alienating everyone in both the analog and digital world. Well, welcome and good evening, you wonderful dice of all alignments. I am Lunar Dee Eight. A Witch of Origins. Indeed, it is the title of a witch who seeks to become a creator. Right now you are just an enchanter, a magician specializing in forms of magical enhancement, who has only enough strength to breathe magical power into the small objects around her. But after 1,000 years of training, you could conceivably use the magical compendium that resides inside your heart to create a galaxy. Is that a... It reminds me of Rimuru at the end of Reincarnated as a Slime. We still have 2 more light novels to finish Overlord, though. What will happen with Einzul Gone? We might never know. I don't know. We have yet to see Rubetto, because there's Albedo, her sister Nigretto, but we have never actually met Rubetto, which is apparently one of Albedo's... Because Albedo is one of 3 sisters, and one of her sisters, I believe, has red hair, but we have never met her. Not even a description, really. So, the talent of a Witch of Origins is very rare. Even though everyone has it when they are young, no one can continue to hold on to it. This title is also proof that you have not lost your untainted heart. Ooh, a Witch of Origins, awesome. I'll become one. I am Maria, an apprentice Witch of Origins. Maria, that's so incredible. A Witch of Origins, incredible, amazing, Uryu. Eventually you'll be able to call yourself a full witch, Lady Maria, Witch of Origins. It may be a good time now to give not only Sakutaro, but you as well an appearance fitting for your rank. Here, I shall give you a proper outfit for one who, while still an apprentice, is worthy of using the title of witch. When Beato waved the pipe that was her cane, many gold butterflies that had appeared out of nowhere grouped around Maria, giving her a wonderful dress. It certainly was fitting for the girl who would eventually take the name of the Witch of Origins, combining both cuteness and dignity. Maria, the Witch of Origins, who will live for 1,000 years in the future. She holds the motherly, magical power to give birth to one from the Sea of Zero. At a glance, this magical power is frail, but no matter how many times you multiply 0, you never end up with anything more than 0. However, she... the one she gave birth to will one day surpass even the heavens. She is loyally protected by Beatrice. Really? Who understands her true worth. The 2 of them are members of the same alliance. Oh, we haven't read this. Goldsmith is Kenzo's sorcerer's name. His skill as a summoner is legendary for the current era. His summoning ability surpasses even Beatrice's at times. However, he is very mismatched, excelling in some areas while fatally lacking at it as a sorcerer in others. Magic... Magic with enough power to reheat a cup of black tea may be beyond him, but he's capable of summoning demons with magic strong enough to boil the sea. The source of this magic is found in arithmetic miracles, and his magical compendium is unique. Later on, even Beatrice took note of this and rearranged her own compendium accordingly. Welcome to today's episode, where Lunar keeps coughing. I guess more than normal anyway, but anyway. Amazing. Awesome. My throat is scratchy. Cute. I want to show these clothes to Mama, too, can I? The full dress of a witch must not be shown indiscriminately. Its value increases if you're stingy with it. Then the Great Witch, the Witch's Apprentice, and their new friend Sakutaro enjoyed a lively tea party. Maybe I can actually need tea. A lively tea party. See? Look how happy I am. And look how fun this is. I mean, it's all well and good, but it doesn't really change, It's like, hey, look, Freddy Krueger gave money to the Salvation Army. I'm like, that's good and all. It's like, oh, Freddy Krueger volunteered to be Santa Claus this one year and he didn't kill anyone. I mean, that's good and all, but it doesn't make him a good person. I mean, it doesn't mean those are bad things. It's kind of like, oh, Jason Voorhees, but he recycles. Please don't be afraid of being happy. Becoming happy isn't the same thing as accepting your current misfortune. Means creating a new happiness out of your current misfortune. That is the magic of origins. I didn't want to acknowledge my current world. I couldn't bear to accept such an isolated and painful world. That's why even though I was entranced by your world, Maria Oni-chan, I couldn't cross the final line. I'll teach you about my magic of origins. No, I taught you before, right? And you used it before. Did you forget? You were also Witch Apprentice Angie, with your name entered in the marriage sorcerer, weren't you? Yeah, that was true. Marriage sorcerer. That takes me back. I also had my name entered in there at one point, didn't I? Yeah. 12 years later. Yes, I will never forget that. It happened in April of 1987. I received a certain strange request from a friend. There was a large collection of books, the former possessions of a very rich man, that were being sold at auction, and it was thought that some of them might have been extremely valuable to the study of archaeology and folklore as well as in an occult sense. So this friend wanted to witness their worth confidentially. That was 87, half a year after that crime on Rakanjima. Correct. It was explained that those books had escaped the disaster at Rakanjima. The owner of the island, Miss Ushiromi Eva, had put them up for auction. This was apparently a high-class restaurant. A middle-aged man was sitting across from Angie in a secluded and quiet seat. Amakusa could be seen by the entrance. Fuck. He was probably keeping a lookout for pursuers from the Sumadara family. The scholarly man across from Angie spoke politely, but with enthusiasm. Huh. Okay. He didn't lay a finger on the food in front of him, so you could tell how excited he was as he spoke fervently. He was a professor at a certain college, and particularly well known as an authority on Western folklore. However, among his life works, that was only a convenient exterior. His true life work was the study of occultism, Western magic, alchemy, and everything else to do with the occult, as well as demonology. In short, he was the person in the best position to understand the details of Kinzo's research. First, what I heard by appraising those books was that Miss Ushiromi Eva had absolutely no education in the study of folklore, and that the original owner of the books, Ushiromi Kinzo, was certainly one of the top 5 authorities on demonology in Japan. I think I need tea. April 1987, a major city antique shop obtained a large quantity of ancient documents that were thought to have a high historical value. They were entrusted with them by Ushiromi Eva, who wanted them to be sold at auction. At the time, it was thought that Eva would succeed the Ushiromi family and have all the wealth to herself as the only survivor. Fuck. However, at that point, not even... Apparently my throat hates me. However, at that point, not even half a year had passed since the accident, and the others had not been missing long enough to be presumed dead, even under extraordinary circumstances. Because of that, Ava had supposedly been in a very tight spot financially, unable to even to collect on her family's life insurance. It seems she tried to sell everything of value, and even the books kept in the place where she had escaped harm in Kumadoruan were used for this purpose. These old books, which would eventually be called the Ushiromiya Library, were later gathered by antique shops by authorities in the field so that they could be appraised, and those authorities were astounded. At least speaking from the perspective of occultism, the impact of the discovery of the world was comparable to the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls, which was like, what, 1947? Or 1970 something? I don't know. I don't remember. Now we go to Google. Late 1946, early 47. Or, they're calling it 1947. Though this thing down here is saying between the 10-year period of 1946 and 1956. And then, of course, translations. Take probably a little bit. A moment. Though their existence had been known of for more than a millennium, the many dreams of the occult, such as those represented by alchemy, always stirred an intense fascination in dilettantes. It is whispered that many magic books of great historical value, currently unknown to the public, might be in secret possession of extremely wealthy lovers of the occult. Items such as Leonardo da Vinci's notebooks, which are particularly popular among dilettantes, are said to be prime examples of this. It is said that approximately 5,000 pages of these notebooks currently exist, and that's over 10,000 have been lost. But some researchers believe that a large part of this lost fortune might be monopolized by certain enthusiasts and numbers of the extremely rich. Fuck. I'll say this, if you're like a really rich person, you had a copy of a rare book, why wouldn't you, make more copies? Heck, nowadays you can just make one copy and just put it on the internet, and there. It is said because of this, even now, dilettantes who can't help but seek these spare no expense to search around for quietly hoarded away in unannounced notebooks. Fuck. There's probably no doubting that Ushiromi Kinzo was himself one of those dilettantes. No one knows what Kinzo went through to obtain those, but there can be no mistake that he used his vast wealth freely buying them off of other rich people with the same hobby as him. Those books, which were so valuable that enthusiasts could never satisfy their desire to hoard them away, were discovered in large numbers at the end of the 20th century. and their release to the public had given the entire world a massive shock. Because of this case, the Rokujima became known across the world. The world was also shocked to learn that, in all likelihood, a large number of even more valuable undiscovered books were lost during the accident on Rokujima. Because of this, the names Rokujima and the Ushiromi Library will remain in our memories for all time. Our memories. That's our probably meant the occult neck of the woods, with the same hobby as Kenzo. Because of that incident, the name Rokujima had taken a vital meaning in the world of the occult. There certainly had been a lot of reporting about the accident of Rokujima itself, but not on an international level. However, this one part had spread across the world. Taking the image of Rokujima as a small island in the Izu archipelago, and painting it over as demonic islands where riddles, suspicion, mystery, and the occult met. In other words, until Kenzo's library was leaked to the public by Ava, Rokujima had merely been a nameless island no one could remember, and certainly not the island of a witch. However, when knowledge of the Ushiromi Library spread all over the planet, Rokujima's image immediately took on an occult twist. What happened next was the discovery of that message bottle. That's what turned that island into a witch's island. A nameless island in the Izu archipelago began transition into an island of the occult, the island of the mysterious witch Beatrice. You might say that lacking either the Ushiromi Library or the message bottle, the Rokujima witch's legend would never have been established. The message bottle. Yes, a form of communication to an unspecified target by throwing an empty bottle with a letter sealed inside it into the sea. It was once famous as a way of sending an SOS from a deserted island, but because of the influence of a certain prominent foreign detective novel, it has also become known as a method of confessing the truth after one's own death, like a time-delayed will. The case of Rokujima's message bottles was certainly one of the latter. This is the thing everyone says a fisherman on a nearby island picked up. Correct. We learned that a young fisherman on Jima picked up a wine bottle with a letter in it. This young fisherman kept it just out of curiosity. Then, because Rokujima had fallen under the world's attention due to the Ushiromi Library, he announced his discovery. Is there any chance that it was a fabrication made by the fisherman? Of course, we weren't able to deny that possibility. The scraps of the paper in the wine bottle were signed by a certain member of the Ushiromi family, a girl named Ushiromi Maria. However, after looking at the writing left on her former belongings, it was confirmed this message was written in a different person's handwriting. A different person's handwriting? Correct. At the very least, I believe there can be no doubt that it was written by a person more skilled at writing and of a greater age than her. There's a very high likelihood that someone faked her name when they wrote it. Therefore, at that point in time, the contents of those scraps of paper were thought to have a very low credibility. However, later on it was confirmed that a similar message bottle had been received from a nearby ocean on the day of the accident by the police in search of lost articles, and this caused a sensation. It seems that due to the evidence from the surrounding area and the fact that the bottle had been sealed, the police had decided that its likelihood of being a fabrication was low and that it had been abandoned no earlier than a few days before the accident. And the handwriting for both matched. This caused the credibility of the scraps of paper discovered by the fisherman to rise. It seems magazines and the like have reported on the contents of the message bottle repeatedly, but would you like an explanation? No. I know about it more or less. Many scraps of paper had been stuffed into the bottle of both of the wine bottles. It was an extensive notebook written by someone calling themselves Ushiromi Maria, but who wasn't Maria, and which told of the events starting the day before the accident and up until the day of the accident in a diary-like way, and its contents had been the beginning of the witch's legend serial murder incident, as well as the Golden Witch's Beatrice's puzzle. This bizarre diary-style notebook described how the Ushiromi family members nailed down on the island by the typhoon were caught up in a ceremony for the resurrection of a witch and killed one by one in inexplicable ways. And, in the end, the Golden Witch Beatrice revived and everything was flung into the Golden Land. It was written almost as if it was a complete account of the events of those days. Also, it depicted the current situation on the island at the time in great detail, and the former servants who used to work for the Ushiromi family gave testimony that it had definitely been written by a human who knew the inside details of the island. So, because of the combination of the occult boom, the strange fantasy novel The Ushiromi Library, as well as the fact that the truth remained shrouded in darkness, the legend of Rakujima which was born. Correct. More than 10 years have already passed since that case, and it is still the focus of interest for occult enthusiasts across the world. No, to the contrary, you could say that it has become increasingly deified as time passes. There are still many enthusiasts who try to secretly land on Rakujima even though it's prohibited. Could there be another message bottle that has still not yet been discovered? And on that day, what really happened on that island? There is still much to be discussed. And so as he finally remembered what had been going on for some time, the man took a gulp of water. His pottage was getting cold, but it seemed that the man's hunger was already been blown away. I'm pretty sure I heard that the fisherman's scraps of paper and the police's scraps of paper had completely different contents. Correct. Due to that, interest in the Rakujima mystery increased even further. Inside both bottles were diary-style notebooks in which was written an account from the days before the accident until the day of the accident. However, while both their contents described the same 2-day period, they were completely different. So one of them's describing episode 1, another one's describing episode 2, and so, or 2 and 3, or 1 and 3, or possibly even what happens in this scenario. I don't know. It was as though one was the truth and one was a lie, or perhaps both were lies. In any event, the beginnings and endings alone matched each other. In the beginning, the 18 people, including the relatives, are all sealed up on the island by the typhoon. Again, this reminds me of the movie Clue with Tim Curry. And in the end, everyone dies. The Golden Witch is revived and everything is flung into the Golden Land. The contents of both message bottles wrote about the events of the day before the accident and the day after the accident. I assume they're both covering episodes 1 and 2, because episode 3 is the one where Ava, became. But the details were completely different. Both diaries outline a serial murder following the epitaph of the witch, but the order of the sacrifices, the way they died, and even the tale of the 2 days were different. However, in both, everyone died in the end and the witch revived, making for the same general plot. Because of the only survivor, Miss Ushiromi Ava has remained silent about what actually happened on that island. Also, didn't she die early on in both of those, episode 1 and episode 2? The events of that entire 2-day period are shrouded in darkness. These 2 diaries presented a full 2 theories to wipe away that darkness. Those 2 days could be explained with either of those 2 diaries. But in both of those diaries, Ava dies. In episode 1, Ava's corpse is found dead. Well, no, she didn't die day 1. She died on the day 2. Her and her husband were murdered in their room. And in episode 2, she was found dead in the chapel in the first set of murders. And I don't know how the story goes at the end of episode 3 that would not, clearly indicate Ava is the killer. But I mean, obviously you would think both are lies because, she dies, or maybe they're just telling different versions that we haven't heard yet. And keep in mind, it's hypothetically from Maria's perspective. However, we don't know which is correct, or even if there's anything correct contained within them. Schrodinger's cat box. At this point, it's it's not even an issue of, is the cat alive or dead? It's is the cat dead from this or dead from that? If it isn't denied, it's even a mixture of truth or fiction. Can be the truth. I mean, Schrodinger's cat box also has other points where you can... Because here's the thing. Yeah, if you put a cat in a box and it hypothetically could have had poison in it, well, is the cat alive or dead? But I mean, also, are there air holes in the box? How long has the cat been in the box? is there a reason why you should be able to hear noise from the box? Because, I mean, if there's a way for air to come in and out of the box, then there should be a way for sound. At which point you should be hearing the cat meow. Very pissed off, by the way. If it isn't, even a mixture of truth and fiction can be the truth. Throughout the media, these scraps of paper had, of course, been shown to Ava as well, but in the end, she never broke her silence. Who sent the message in the bottle and why? Earlier in their special issue for the crime's 10th anniversary, a certain magazine took the topic up for discussion in a grand manner, didn't they? That theory seems to be the one garnering the most support lately, but it is rather dull. What happened on that island on that day? Considering this question is the true charm of the witch hunt. The witch hunt? Yes, the Rokkenjima witch hunt is the name of a group of enthusiasts who try to explain the truth of that crime from an occult perspective. Discussion of the mysteries that surround Rokkenjima, from the Ushiromi Library to the mysterious 2-day period to the legend of the Golden Witch, is flourishing even today among enthusiasts. For the 10-year anniversary, an international convention was held in New York. I also participated as a representative of Japan. I was able to intermingle with zealous overseas witch hunters in many ways. Witches are a very popular category overseas. The age span of these participants stretched from elementary schoolers at the bottom all the way to the famous cultural figures at the top. Even in Japan in recent years, there was finally... You probably don't need any more explanation, but he's one of the most famous Rokkenjima witch hunters in Japan. Even though I didn't ask anything more, he kept continuing on excitedly all by himself. As I swirled the thin film on my pottage with my spoon, I shrugged my shoulders and sighed. Looks like the research about the message bottle really was a waste of time. No, if there's one thing I've found, it's that the notebook was supposedly written by Maria Oni-chan, was actually written by a different person faking her name, and that person wrote up an occult legend on their own, put it into the bottle as those threw it into the sea. I have a question. Why would they go to all the trouble of writing so much in order to prepare a suspicious letter like that? With a message in a bottle, there'd be no guarantee that it ever even passed into anyone's hands, and if their luck had been bad, it could have sunk into the ocean, never to be seen by anyone, and even if someone had picked it up, they might have not cared about it and thrown it away. Why would they entrust their confession of the truth to the sea with such an uncertain method, and why would they write up multiple differing tales? If there had been one message bottle claiming that its story is the truth, it might be reckless, but not impossible. However, because there were two, that made both of them doubtful. If someone was plotting to make out these 2 days to be the work of a witch, they really did go one step too far. And because there was two, it suggests that an undiscovered third one, or possibly even more, might exist. In other words, the two different concepts make both of them harder and harder to swallow. But despite that, the contents of both matched in that they told of a witch in a tale. So, is that the main point that the writer wanted to get across to us? It seems to me that the only possible explanation is that someone who wanted to give rise to the illusion of witch carried out this crime for their own enjoyment. However, 17 people, other than Aunt Ava, lost their lives, and a vast amount of wealth, maybe even 10 tons of gold, had moved around secretly in the darkness. It doesn't feel right for a confession occurring after all that to bring up this illusion of the witch. Even if we ignore the magazine's theories, it's very doubtful that the message of the bottle really was a diary. After all, the amount of writing was massive. It's hard to imagine that someone actually caught up in the middle of a serial murder like that would be able to calmly write it down. In that case, it's probably more realistic that this diary was written slowly over a long period of time up until the day prior to the accident. In that case, would it mean that everything on the Rokkenjima was a planned crime, with everything prepared for over a long stretch of time? The fact that Aunt Ava left this world without saying anything is infuriating. She definitely said it on her deathbed. She definitely said that her reason for not telling me the truth was because it was her best way of harassing me. Yeah, by now it's painfully obvious. Of all the things Aunt Ava did to harass me, this was probably the last and the greatest. But thinking of it this way, it was pretty doubtful that Aunt Ava is the true culprit. Of course, that's not because the handwriting on the message bottle was different from Aunt Ava's, or anything like that. Honestly, because if she was actually guilty of the crime, she actually would have gotten off on telling us that she did it. Though episode 3 kind of, disagrees with me on that. It's because in both tales they were discovered Aunt Ava was included among the victims. If the writer of that diary was the culprit, maybe Aunt Ava was also one of the targets to be killed. Maybe Aunt Ava survived because something went wrong. So Aunt Ava wasn't the initial victim of wasn't the initial perpetrator of this So both of these were like mock scenarios where they're writing out how to do things. And the plan was to kill Ava each time, but something went awry. But eventually Ava was incorporated into the plan and allowed to live on the situation that she promised never to talk. But at that point, you're dying anyway. Maybe it's like, okay, you'll die, but you'll at least not be like going back to the Golden Land to be tortured. Because Fixated on Ava, I came to believe that she had to be the culprit, but the existence of the message bottle makes me suspect the mastermind is far more profound and unknown person than her. I looked at the clock. I've heard more than enough. It's time. As he continued to speak fervently, I suggested that I wanted to bring this discussion to a close. He seemed to be aware that he'd gotten excited and talked too much, so he quickly accepted this. Thank you very much for today. I believe I've heard something truly valuable. No. It was truly fun to be able to welcome a young lady as a new friend of the witch hunt. I have many precious materials that I couldn't show you because of this change to a different venue from the usual. I would be glad to show you them at the next chance we get. Thank you, Professor. Could I ask one more thing? Yes, what is it? Professor, why are you interested in witches? No, in occultism and demonology. Well, that is something somewhat embarrassing. A daydream I had in my childhood that if I could use a mysterious power, I could take on even the biggest bullies. Went on to become my life's work. After all, the primitive desire of admiring unknown power is as universal today as it was in the past. Professor, if you could do it, would you want to become a witch? Do you still dream of being able to use magic at will? But of course. Even though at this age I understand logically that such a thing couldn't exist, I cannot forget my childlike dreams such as flying in the sky and turning scrap iron into gold. Ha ha ha. If you would please keep this a secret from my students. If I told you that I was a real witch, would you believe it? Ha ha ha. My pet theory from my few experiences with women is that they are all witches. Angie snorted at the old professor, who must have been an earnest scholar with barely any experience with women. Yeah. And one final question. Professor, have you seen the original message bottle itself? I have indeed. In that case, do you know that handwriting well? Of course. I am not a specialist in that area, but at least when it comes to the handwriting of the message bottle, I am proud to be the most knowledgeable in Japan. Are we going to show him? At that point, Angie set a book on the desk with a thud. And this is? I have never seen it before. He prided himself on his thorough knowledge of all literature related to rock and Japan, and he looked bewildered at this binding that he hadn't seen before. Ignoring him, Angie silently flipped through the pages, opened to one of them, and showed him. On that page was a handwritten paragraph beginning to my beloved witch apprentice. And at the end, there was a signature in katakana that said, Beatrice. This is... The instant he glanced at it, his face went pale. She knew the answer before asking, but Ange asked it aloud anyway. Does the handwriting in this paragraph, on this page, match the handwriting in the message bottle? Well, I must take this home and investigate more. Pardon me for asking, but what in the world is this book? Where did you get it? The man stretched out his hand, but Angie pulled it back, as though telling him not to touch it with his filthy hands. Thank you. Just the reaction is all I need. Thank you very much for today. Here's the reward I promised. As she stood up clutching Maria's diary, Angie carelessly tossed a wad of 10,000 yen notes wrapped with a strip of paper onto the table. As Angie turned her back to him and made to leave, the man raised his voice as though clinging to her, but Angie didn't stop walking. I beg you. What in the world is that book? I don't need a reward. Show me that book. Both you and I are in the witch hunt, but it looks like we aren't pursuing it at the same level. You're entertaining yourself at the outside the cat box. What I want to know is the inside of the cat box, and this book is the key to opening it. It's too good for you. Well then, goodbye, gentlemen. Have a nice day. But please wait. Sumadara-san. His voice didn't reach her. She had already joined Amakusa and gone into the car. So we've confirmed that the letters that were found and in the bottle were written by Beatrice and not by Maria. Did you find anything? Only at the very end. I was right. The one who wrote the message bottles was Beatrice herself. Cool. So you've concluded the witch actually exists. Who knows? Mind if I sleep? Well, we haven't confirmed if the person is magical or not. We've only confirmed that someone calling themselves Beatrice is the one who wrote those things and was present at the island. And pretended to be Maria. I'll bet that talkative professor gets lost in his own little world in lectures and makes a lot of kids fall asleep. Please go ahead and take a rest. Still, that went really well. That guy believed I was a Sumadara until the very end. The Sumadara family had set up a web beforehand around the people Angie might try to contact. They had offered a reward to anyone who could take Ushiromi Ange into custody if she appeared. Angie had foreseen that and had snatched it away. She had called herself Sumadara, and after cleverly tricking the man by saying her own subordinates would set up an ambush, so he didn't need to worry about it, she had taken him outside. So when Sumadara family pursuers reached the professor's house, there was no longer anyone there. According to the family, a young man and a woman calling themselves Sumadara visited this morning, took the professor out with them, and still had not yet returned. There's a chance we were outmaneuvered. What a bad child, Angie-chan. I wonder if that craftiness is from Nason's blood. To think she'd casually take on the name Sumadara after saying she'd hate to go by it so often. Ho, ho, ho. The professor should be returning soon. When he does, we must serve him some tea. Yes, understood. I wonder if she thinks she's leading me around by the nose. What a naughty child. Giggle. With a demonic look on her face, Kasumi violently stamped her heel. I'll teach you about my magic of origins. Okay. No, I taught you before, right? And you used it before. Did you forget? You were also a witch apprentice, Angie, with your name entered into Marriage Sorcerer, weren't you? I was also included among the witches, wasn't I? I closed Maria's diary and flopped down on a very high-class-looking bed. I'd slept deeply for a long time in the car, so it took longer than usual for the drowsiness to set in, and I read the diary as I waited. This was a super expensive hotel in the city, so the times that we're there talking about Battler and everything, it's happening in, like, it's like a parallel timeline, but separated by 12 years. So, like, we're over these period of 2 days is both events are going on, even though separated by 12 years. However, we're only physically there ourselves, speaking to people as the ghost person to the other witches while we're asleep in the future. This was a super expensive hotel in the city. Since it was often used by the rich and the famous, they were very big on confidentiality. That made it very convenient for Angie to escape her pursuers. The idea that renegades should spend their nights hiding in cheap hotels is a commoner's way of thinking. To Angie, who possessed all the wealth of the Ushiromi family, renegade life was comfortable indeed. Of course, even though he was a guard, Amakusa was a man and therefore in a separate room. Angie used the bedroom of the suite, and Amakusa lay on the sofa in the living room. According to Amakusa, the sofas here were more pleasant than his own beds had been recently. Poor guy. When I looked at the clock, I saw that it was almost 2 in the middle of the night. I'm still not getting sleepy. I sighed deeply. At that time, even though there was no wind, I had the feeling Maria One-chan's diary fluttered. Then One-chan appeared. Her form was no longer that normal one I knew. She was wearing the dress that Beatrice had given her after acknowledging her as a witch. If you don't get some sleep, it'll be tough tomorrow, right? If I were a witch too, I'd be able to use my magic, wouldn't I? Yeah, you can use it. I taught you, didn't I? Taught you how to use it. And you were able to use it in the past, weren't you? I remember. I've started wanting to use it. Are you starting to feel lonely? Not really. It's not like I'm having a different pillow every night is that tough. The first step to magic can be loneliness or boredom. Even small reasons like that. Even if it's just trying to kill time until you can fall asleep. Yeah, I'm glad you remembered about magic one more time. It's been quite a long time since I last used magic. At one point with Maria One-chan's introduction, I touched a corner of it and opened the door to a tiny bit, so I should still remember that sensation. Right now, your magical powers decline significantly, Angie, and if you don't devote yourself to the basics, it'll be hard, okay? Sure. Checking all directions. Securing a quiet space. What about Amakusa-san? He's sleeping. After opening the door to the living room from a crack, I could see the blanket caterpillar on the sofa roll over in its sleep. With your magical strength as weak as it is now, the anti-magic power is affecting you too much. Not just the sight of people, but voices, sounds, and even the presence of people get in the way of your magic. Sever those completely, like how ancient magicians shut themselves up in ateliers to preserve their isolation. I remember. The very existence of humans blocks magic. Therefore, the very act of showing magic to people is a sign of a high-level witch. Obtain a quiet space for yourself alone. That should be enough to prepare a space to use magic. Next is the vessel. Right now, it's important for your bike to at least have training wheels, no a chain. This is, of course, impossible. Angie rubbed her own head. She wore hair accessories there, with gems, pink gems attached. They felt a little childish to Angie, but she never took them off, not even for a single day. Yeah, it really will be impossible for you now, Angie. If you'd practiced every single day since then, you might gain the ability to summon with that by now. If I were to start training now, how long would it take? It's said that a year of magical training for a child is worth 10 years for an old person. You need a lot of determination. You mean like Ushiromi Kenzo? So just like that piano and the violin, getting a special education from a young age is huge when it comes to magic. As you are now, your power is weakened since the time you were at first able to use magic, Angie. Don't overdo it and devote yourself to the basics. After stubbornly rubbing those things on my head one more time, I gave up. Then I started fishing through the knapsack, looking for anything that might make a good vessel. Shouldn't this be a perfect vessel? It's been a long time, yes. With this, I think even you should be able to perform a summons as you are now, and they have no master now. It should be possible for you to become their new master, Angie. Among the things that look like good vessels, I took the one that I thought might possess the strongest magical power. And set it on the side of the table near the bed with a clatter. Is it the old little chess set thing of like little rabbits and stuff with violins? It was a shady-looking, stake-shaped weapon with an occult design inscribed on it. It was one of the 7 stakes of purgatory which the witch used to offer sacrifices. Is it the 2 that were killed and then replaced by the Chester sisters? The bunny girls? The British military bunny girls? When the police had been searching the family's possessions, they had collected a large amount of junk. After the investigation had finished, these had been politely returned to the Ushiromi family. Finding something that I had seen in the pictures of Maria's diary, I took it home with me. Originally, there were 7 stakes of purgatory. How pitiful. Now she's the only one left. Oni-chan smiled, looking lonely. So, you're saying by the time the story's done, 4 more died and get replaced. So, whichever one we're holding is the only... But how do we know which one's which? Which one is the survivor? I pulled another book out of the knapsack. This was also old-fashioned. You could tell that it was an occult book just by looking, but its contents were plain. It was one of Maria Onechan's elaborate notebooks. This wasn't a diary. This was a grimoire which she had written as a witch. The 7 Stakes of Purgatory are Beatrice's furniture, created by her and employed only for her sake. But since Beatrice is also witch of marriage sorcery, they could be employed by Maria, a witch of the same alliance. For that reason, the method of summoning the 7 Stakes of Purgatory and how to handle them was written about in great detail in Maria Onechan's grimoire. And, as another person with a name registered in that alliance, I was also permitted to employ them. Which of the 7 sisters is this stake? Their characteristics are written about well in my grimoire. The sisters of the 7 Stake really hate it when you get their names wrong. Remember their names well before summoning them. Okay, then, but how do we know which stake's which? A packed page told of the 7 Stakes of Purgatory, described the 7 sisters in great detail. Yes, I think I memorized almost this entirety page once in the past. The more I read it, the more I start to remember. By the pictures and the characteristics written on the grimoire, I could tell that the stake in my hand was Mammon's stake. In the past, I hadn't had any stakes, so I'd summoned them without any vessel. So this was the first time I'd clearly seen any of the 7 stakes, let alone Mammon. Mammon, the 5th sister, controls the deadly sin of greed. An incredible kid. Greed also controls aspirations, the desire to improve oneself and the strength to live. At one point I did discuss that in a previous video. It wasn't an umineko video, though. The idea being that if you describe sin as different terms, like in one Greek translation, sin simply means to miss the mark as an archery term, which means at that point sin doesn't mean evil so much as it means failure to be perfect or failure to achieve a goal or live up to a standard. It basically means one has a connotation of being evil, whereas the other has a connotation of you got a question wrong on a math test. It's kind of like the whole thing with 10 Commandments. The English way of referring to it is 10 Commandments, but by the old Hebrew way of saying it, it's the 10 words or 10 sayings. So it kind of carries a different intent to it. I mean, it's still technically the same thing. But it's good to know context. It's kind of like, say, the part in the Bible where Jesus starts admonishing people like, oh, you've robbed people of tithes and offering, but it's like, who's he talking to in that point? He's not talking to the average person. He's talking to like the Pharisees and the priests. He's talking to the people that are being given the tithes and offerings. So he's not criticizing people for not giving enough to the church. He's criticizing the people who are receiving the money for the church and misappropriating it or even embezzling it. But yeah, when you look at sins, like you could like, okay, is it disobedience? Is it evil? Is it things that cause harm? Is it malice? But then you could describe sin in different ways. One, sin could be in the way that it causes harm to you in your life, or harm to others, or how it's a bad thing. Like one could certainly say, you know, well, I'm not going to get in details or else we'll be here all day. But one way you look at it is, okay, how does it cause harm? But another way is this. If you look at sin as, how is it a survival instinct? How is this trait necessary to live and survive in the world? As an individual, as a society, even as a species, as a family, as anything. And then to go beyond that is if, how would you look at these as things that exist in, heaven? Basically, if you had a perfect utopia, how would the sins be necessary still, more so as human characteristics that, well, people need just to be human? that if you take these things away from a person, like even if you lived in a perfect utopia, you don't have the capacity to feel anger or sadness anymore. I mean, are you really human? And that there's things that really there's nothing innately wrong with any of the things on their own. Yes, there's ways you can look at them as sins and how they would cause negative impacts on your life or others, or it could be immoral, but there's also ways you look at it as survival traits that you need to survive in the world of, reality. But then even then, if you were to introduce people into actual like heaven or something, and as utopia, why you would still need these traits for a person just to be sane or be able to exist in a life that's actually worth living. And of course, one could make a long list of sins, at which point you're trying to evaluate each thing as what are ways in which humans can err, but also could be seen as ways that humans need certain traits for survival, and also that there are certain traits that are, even if it's not needed for survival, how is it just part of what makes human human, that if you, even in a utopia heaven situation, you need people to have this, otherwise they're essentially lobotomized zombies. I know, like, if you go by the first, technically you have the 7 deadly sins, though there were 2 others that were originally supposed to be included with it, technically bringing us up to 9. And of course, I've at least listed to everyone out there sin number 10. But I at one point wrote a list of 200, but that was back when I was like 11 years old or something. Do I even have that book anywhere? I wrote it in the back of some book. I at least try to keep things. I tend to be a bit of a sentimental person, so I still have my baby blanket from when I was young. Granted, it's very worn out and faded and has holes and tears in it, much like my soul. But I still have it. But yeah, it's a white blanket with Mickey Mouse for the Winter Olympics. It's really comfy, but I don't really sleep with it. It's still in my room. I can see it right there. I just don't really cover up with it anymore, even though I think it's very comfortable against the skin. Though I think most people would probably find it uncomfortable. I think it's more so just that it's something very familiar to me. That being said, I don't really cover with it because I don't want it to be completely destroyed, and I want it to, remain. And I realize that it's kind of on its last HP points. So, as much as if I were to cover up with it, I'm going to do it in a way where I'm not going to be actually falling asleep. Like basically lay there while you're not going to move much. Because if I were to fall asleep with it, I roll around a lot in my sleep. And, well, let's just say I'd wake up and it would have less hit points. So, then again, I still miss, I used to have a blue binder, a bunch of dinosaur facts and stuff like that. But, if I were to go with the, obviously there's the 7 deadly sins that everyone's familiar with. Let's see, pride, lust, greed, envy, wrath, sloth, and gluttony. And then, of course, sins 8 and 9 are vanity and melancholy. And, well, like I said, I wrote a list up to 200, which sin number 10 is alchemy. But like I said, each of these things, including all of the 200, they exist. It's not just one simple list. Each thing is actually part of 3 lists. Like pride. Obviously, if you're arrogant, pride can lead you to have an unrealistic understanding of your value. You need to be able to be understanding of reality. Of course, you don't want to go to the opposite of that either. You need some amount of self-esteem to function. I mean, in the world, how would you get out of bed and even function as a person? But even then, how would you have a sense of self if you didn't have pride? Or take lust. I mean, in terms of a sin, like, okay, if you are going out fucking hookers or getting like syphilis or fucking some random woman unprotected and you're, okay, now there's a kid that doesn't have parents anymore, or you're cheating on your wife or something like that, like obviously that's a failure to control lust in that way because it's causing harm. Now, in terms of survival, well, I mean, you need lust to, produce more people. Otherwise, the human race doesn't continue. Now, if you have a perfect utopia and everyone's immortal, and let's say everyone's completely sterile and nobody can have children at all anymore ever again, well, at that point, you still need both sexual intimacy and non-sexual intimacy. Like good examples of non-sexual intimacy is, hugs, handshakes, just cuddling and stuff like that. Human contact. But also, sexual intimacy itself is also very important, especially since sexual intimacy is supposed to be a reflection of emotional intimacy. Intimacy is supposed to be about closeness, bonds, and trust. That's usually why if somebody is going out there and sleeping with lots and lots and lots of people, well, I mean, it's supposed to be something sacred, and at the same time, it's like you're giving a special piece of yourself to someone, and you are bonding that person. But if you're like bonding to everyone in that way, then the bond becomes weakened. So I would say the best way to describe it is true with anything, that things have the value that you ascribe to them. If you see something as very casual and not special, then it won't really be special. But if it's something that you treat with, dignity and respect, well, then it has more importance. But I guess in the end, it boils down to what importance do you yourself put on it. And of course, if you put more value on it, well, then it is of more value to you. So you obviously care about it more. But I guess that's to each their own and whatever works best for you. But the main point is, people want to feel safe, loved, and have connection. Otherwise, you're basically just wandering the back rooms by yourself. Because, at that point, the whole world becomes a liminal space. Because at that point, if you feel so isolated and alone, then you'll basically start to feel more like just not even less connection, but just less alive. But I'm just saying, people feeling loved and cared about is important of itself. Plus, I would say having intimate connections with someone you trust and love and care about, what is a life that doesn't have passion? And that's the thing, a lot of times people describe things like what they view as heaven. I'm like, it's not like I expect things to be a perfect utopia. I would still expect to be trying to do things. I'd want to learn new skills. And I wouldn't want everything to be perfect. But at the same time, I wouldn't want everything to be awful either. But yeah, at one point I wrote down a list of 200 deadly sins, but it was more so 200 things that could apply to 3 different lists of 200. To where basically you're writing a list of 200 things, but you're trying to apply each of those 200 things into 3 different categories. Imagine this. What if you were to take a list of 200 things from Minecraft, or any video game, and then put different descriptors to each column. So each thing applies to each thing. So say if you had a video game, you have one trait that you're emphasizing. So you're evaluating all 200 things. Say if you took a video game and you picked 200 things out of that video game that you thought were important. And then you organized where you wrote all of them. Say if you made a chart and you wrote all of them down vertically on the left hand. And then, of course, on the right hand, you have 3 columns. So you have 200 rows of each of those 200 items. And then you have 3 columns where you have at the top, each column is set to a different descriptor. At which point then you write in where that column and that row intersect about how that descriptor applies specifically to that item. And so each descriptor values a different thing, and each one describes each item in a different way. And like I said, in this situation, you'd have in the left column, you'd have the 200 deadly sins. And then, of course, in your 3 columns, column A is how is that sin evil or harmful to you? Specifically focusing on what could be physically or emotionally or psychologically harmful to you or others, or it could be seen as immoral. But of course, morality could of course be seen subjective, some way of hurting. But at the same time, well, that could also be everything. I mean, technically there's that saying, oh, if every time you assume anything, you make an ass out of you and me. But at the same time, in any conversation you have with anyone, or anytime you do anything, or even if you try to have a scientific explanation of anything, or even try to have a scientific theory, you have to make certain baseline assumptions that this is a fact, this is a situation. And usually, even if you're absent an absolute fact, you have to go with what's the general consensus, what's the statistic. You can't be like, oh, but there's this 1% chance of this, or there's an unlikely situation of this, or that's not true all the time. Yes, that's true. That's fine. There are those exceptions. But when it comes to a discussion like this, you are not arguing the exceptions. Yes, you can have little side notes about what the exceptions are, and you can argue those semantics and those little extra details. That's good. It's good to have that extra bit of context. But in general, if you're talking about the sky, it's like, oh, you say what color is the sky? Blue. Okay, and then you go from that. Yes, there's times where the sky could be all sorts of different colors. What if it's night? What if there's aurora borealis? What if the fucking supernova's happening? I don't fucking know. What if it's dusk? What if it's storming? What if they're clouds? Yeah, in general, yes. There's so many different... What if it's foggy? What if it's the middle of fucking winter? And it's more so you just see a lot of mist in the air and it looks white. Or the sun's blinding off every fucking anything. Yes, you can get about everything. But main point is this. Sky is blue. The end. Yes, the sky could technically be every other color too. And technically, even when the sky is blue, it's technically only blue because of the certain wavelength that the eye is seeing due to the way the fucking atmosphere works. I get that. Heck, even if you could argue the size the moon looks, if the moon's at a lower part in the horizon, the atmosphere acts like a little bit of a lens magnifying the size of it by how it appears, by how it affects light. Yes, that's good to know. But that's not how we're arguing this. It's like if you're arguing statistics. Yes. It's like if you're trying to argue, like, this is this certain amount of time. Yes. You're going by what normally, like, there's always going to be an exception to something. And I think the dumbest thing is anything. I mean, if you ever talk about statistics to somebody, if they somehow take it personally, even if it has nothing to do with them. That, oh, but I know this one thing in this one situation where it didn't apply. I'm like, yes, that's good to know, and it's great to know that extra situation, but in general, we're trying to make a discussion. We have to set a baseline, and usually that requires to say, okay, statistically, what is to be expected in this situation? If I say this scenario, what do you think is going to happen? So, yeah. There's always going to be outliers, but if especially if you're talking about statistics, you got to go by just what is statistics. You're trying to understand. It's like, okay, if you have this bell curve, this thing happens 85% of the time, and the other 15% of the time, it could be, on either side of the bell curve. That's fine, and that's good to know. We understand that. It's also good to know how extreme the bell curve can be. But in general, the answer we're going for is what is the majority, most common answer that you would expect. Yes, there's always going to be outliers, but that's not what we're trying to discuss. I'm getting really off track. Main point being is that, well, this whole thing's a fucking tangent. I keep saying I'm not going to go on tangents. I'm just going to read the story. Main point being is this. trying to remember. Fuck, what was I talking about? I know like there's the 3 columns and stuff, but main point is, oh right, what's harmful and what's wrong. Yes, there could be endless debate about that. But in general, we all understand fucking common sense. So if I try to say, what is an action that is harmful to a person, whether themselves or to others or society, and whether it's harmful physically, emotionally, or psychologically, you understand what I mean. Though I would say I would put an importance of ranking all that, and at least when it comes to sin, is this. Yes, we're trying to understand what are things that are harmful to the person, as well as to others and to society, as well as to what things could be seen as being immoral or wicked or evil. However, when it comes right down to it, and again, this is all part of column A, the sin column, because you have a chart. And on the left hand, you have 200 rows, where it's the 200 deadly sins. And above, you have 3 columns: sin, survival, and trait, or human personality characteristic. Basically, column A, how is it harmful or evil? Column B, how is it something necessary for survival? Column C, how is it something that's necessary as part of the human psyche in order for a human to be human, or even be sentient, or having a meaningful life, or even have free will? To the point that if this air quotes aka sin didn't exist, how would the person cease to be human, or cease to be alive, or sentient, or have free will, or be able to be happy, or have a meaningful existence? So obviously, each of these columns would have to be very wide to allow a lot of writing, so that you could always add more to it. Obviously, a computer program would work really well with this. I don't know a computer program, but who knows? And of course, it would always be something you can always edit or add stuff to, because you'd always have more information to add. Obviously, column A would be the sin column. As far as how is it harmful or evil? B, how is it necessary for survival? Column C, how is it something that's just part of, a human personality characteristic that you need to be a person? Even if it's to some minute level or to an extreme. Because after all, everyone's got different personalities. So, column A, of course, is the whole harm or evil category. Obviously, we describe all those different aspects of it as how they affect each thing, but of course, each of these things has more of a ranking system. And in general, when anyone wants to think of something, honestly, I give a shit more about the individual more than I do about society. Yes, it's important to be aware of how they impact on society. After all, it's still part of the ranking system. But literally, that matters very little when compared to the individual. So, and that's actually true of all of these things. Whether we're talking about whether it's harmful or evil, or whether it's something you need to stay alive, or if it's something that just makes a person, we're caring much more about the individual, how it is as an individual level and how it is to yourself, than how it is to the rest of everyone around you or society. For example, if we're talking about the sin of lust or greed or pride, we're going to obviously care much more about how those actions and desires and instincts and human drives are harmful to you, specifically yourself. We're going to prioritize how it affects you yourself above how it affects others around you. And even then, you're focusing more on the people around you ahead of the rest of society. So obviously, there'd be like 3 tiers to that. You could also divide it into more if you wanted. Tier 1, the most important tier, would be how it affects you. Tier 2 would be how it affects people around you that you yourself probably at least know directly those people. And Tier 3 would be how it affects society in general. So as we're talking about greed, okay, obviously we care more. How does that greed affect you specifically in your life? And then how does it affect people you know? After all, you might care about those people, or at least the effect you have on those people might have an effect on you, and obviously then on society. And of course, again, how the society has an effect on you, or how things affect society. But then we're prioritizing how the effect on you. And of course, we're also prioritizing harm over wickedness. Simply put, we're treating as it matters more what happens to the individual than it to society, and of course to people that are around you are in the middle of that. So it goes yourself, people that know you or around you directly affected by you, then the rest of general society. Like basically, like if we're talking about like the sin category, a column of harm and wrongdoing, the first priority is how does engaging, like if we're talking about greed, then the question is this: how does engaging in greed cause you yourself harm? Followed by how does it harm others around you? And then it's like not just how it affects society, but in general, how does a society that where a lot of people are driven by that greed, how does that affect them in terms of harm? And then of course, then you'd go to morality. But again, it would start by your own personal morality. Like, and again, general, this would have a lot of different categories here, but primarily would be two equal twin categories of equal importance. One, what you yourself consider moral, and two, what is the general consensus of common sense. You could even have a third one if like wherever you are in the world has a unique view on it, different than what is I would consider normal. But at least the main thing is this: how could you look at it as, are you doing anything wrong that could be seen as wicked or harmful? Basically, the harm thing is, what are you doing that's going to cause any misfortune or physical, emotional, or psychological harm to yourself? As far as the wrongdoing one, it would be, are you doing anything that you would feel that need to be ashamed of, or let's see, what's a better way to put that you would feel that other people would say is wrong, or that you yourself would think is wrong. But again, it depends on what value you ascribe to that. But the main thing is like we're talking about, like we're breaking these 200 deadly sins more along the lines of they're 200 drives. The basically column A is sin, but the rows are the 200 drives. So at that point we're discussing and of course it's kind of understanding to know like the whole Sigmund Freud thing about like, the ego, superego, and id, where it's like there's an idea of what's your inner dialogue in your mind, what's your idealized version of yourself, and what is your desires in the world unfettered by social restraints. Now that being said, if we were to then describe as rather than saying the 7 deadly sins, what about the 7 drives or motivating factors in your mind? I mean, look at it this way. Rather than saying, oh, these are sins or evils, after all, even the whole, air quotes, 7 virtues that could be talked about, if taken to excess, are vices in their own right. And each of the 7 virtues can actually be very harmful, if not, well, counterproductive. Like each of them are good and should be kept. And again, things are about balance. It's kind of like the argument of Xenos with like the whole stoicism thing, like the idea of denying human drives and instincts and having control and not being affected by the outside world. But at the same time, it doesn't mean you need to be some sort of unemotional, fucking unfeeling fucking rock. It just means you need to have discipline and self-control. But of course, I also ascribe very strong idea of René Descartes, a French philosopher, where it was the idea of that there's nothing innately wrong with human drives or instincts, but that they can be misused or can control you as a person and could even lead to addictions or lead you to a path of self-destruction. But at the same time, there's nothing innately wrong with them, and in fact, they're kind of quite necessary for life, and if not just survival, but also thriving. That when it comes right down to it is this: it's important to have self-reflection and to understand who you are, to understand what motivates you, what you want, what makes you happy, what makes you angry, but not condemning yourself for it. Simply put is this: take a moment to evaluate yourself and decide, what is it that makes you happy? What is it that makes you sad? What is it that makes you angry? What are you scared of? What are you hoping for? What are your goals and aspirations? What are your goals in life? But without passing any sort of judgment on anything. Like, what if your goal is to, like, have a really good bench press or something? Obviously, some people might have something to say about some of that. But of course, at the end of the day, let's ignore the whole concept of what anyone else in society or even what you think as passing a judgment on yourself. Like, completely forego any sort of sense of judgment, even of yourself. Just simply state, without any kind of prejudice against yourself, what is it that you want? What is it that you don't want? What is it that you want in life? What would make you happy? What is it like? Evaluate your day to day. Like, obviously, when you go to work, how is your day with that, and how do you go through it? But even then, think about this. What about your day off? What do you do on your day off? What is it you like to do? Do you want to play video games? Do you want to watch anime? And again, some people would say, oh, that's wrong, you're wasting your time playing video games. I'm saying, fuck that kind of like whole worry about, oh, whether it's right or wrong to spend some time playing a video game. Oh, you could have spent that time working more and making more money or something. No, fuck that. We're not like, oh, that's a loser hobby to play video games or watch anime, blah, blah, blah. Fuck that. Don't worry about any of that shit. We're not passing judgment on your fucking hobbies or interests. We're just discussing, without any concern for what anyone else thinks of it, or even what kind of like, oh, this could be wrong with that or that wrong with it. Like, it's more so just, what do you like? And if you do have goals, like say you want to get in shape, yes, that takes a lot of effort to going to the gym, but the question is, why are you doing that? Do you enjoy doing that? It could be multiple things. But the thing is, what is it that motivates you? What do you want? What is it? What are the habits you might even fall into? Like, even if there are things that you dislike about yourself, like say if you like do some sort of drugs or something, well then why do you do that? What is it that motivates you to do that? At that point, we're not even saying for you to look at it in a way of judging yourself for it. It's more so understanding why. Basically just listing out all sorts of positive, negative things about yourself, but without any concern for what's good or bad. Just being completely truthful and honest about what the reflection of what your daily life is, about who you are as a person. Like, what is your personality? How do you speak? Why do you speak that way? Are you getting enough sleep even? Like, that's another thing. Like, you evaluate other things. Like, are you, okay, we're getting really off track. But you guys get what I mean. Like, you're basically taking stock of things. The main point Rene Descartes was this, is that there's nothing innately wrong with any of your motivations or way of thinking, but rather that you should understand what your motivations are, and then, of course, understand reality. And by understanding that, one, if whatever motivation you have is something that is counterproductive to your health, like if you were like eating McDonald's, well, you understand, okay, you like McDonald's, but then you can evaluate, okay, this is not very healthy for you. At which point you can then say, okay, you understand that motivation, but you also like understand, okay, that will cause harm, so you then don't do that. Same way, you can also like, okay, your motivations to do this one thing, to like train or learn a language, so it's like, oh, you work harder at that. The main point is this, there's nothing innately wrong, but it's that if you can understand what your feelings are on things, what makes you angry, what makes you sad, what makes you scared, what makes you happy, well, then you'd be better able to control and even improve upon or even grow or develop at whatever you're doing. Understand your own strengths and weaknesses. As opposed to the flawed way a lot of people look. Again, Stoicism is not about being an unfeeling rock. It's more so about discipline. But at the same time, Rene Descartes is more along the lines of, there's nothing wrong with having a life of passion. At the same time, you should endeavor to understand what your passions are. And you shouldn't let them control yourself. You shouldn't let them control you, but you should be able to control yourself. But at the same time, that doesn't mean complete denial of anything that makes you happy. It just means an understanding of what it is and living and finding a way to live in balance so that you don't take anything to an extreme and that you understand who and what you are and actually go on the path you want to go. So at that point where it's like drawing a map. You're not judging where the rivers and the mountains are. You just want to know where they are. Later on, you can make a decision about what path you want to chart. But at that point, you're not judging the forest for where the trees are. You just want a good picture. You're like, okay, Bob Ross, let's paint this countryside, majestic river bullshit. I have become the AI slop. Seen like the Sora 2 videos and shit, guys? Fucking insane shit. Worries about the future. Okay, but main point being is this. Heck, it's also good to look at philosophy of everything, like read the Odyssey of Odysseus, or read some Shakespeare, Edgar Allan Poe, the Canterbury Tales, Don Quixote. Tons of novels, even modern anime and manga are really fascinating, awesome stuff. And heck, read everything you can. That's one thing I really suggest people just read is everything you can. Heck, read some Warhammer books, read some D&D books. Read light novels. Read the video game manuals. Read the lore in the video games. But heck, read some Socrates and Aristotle and Plato and Diogenes. But yeah, main thing was like, okay, column A. It's just prioritizing, okay, what is harmful to you and what could be seen as evil or wicked or wrong. And then evaluate, why is that thing wrong? Why is it seen that way? If it's harmful, why is it harmful? How is it harmful? And of course, like I said, each of these, and then of course column B is, how is it a survival trait? How does it keep you yourself alive? How does it help the people around you with survival? How does it help society function? And how is it part of what makes a person a person? For example, if you could be in heaven and you would never die no matter what, and it was, air quotes, a utopia, peaceful society, well, surely there would be things that you would still want that would be seen as unnecessary. Like, you'd still want to be able to draw, or learn new languages, or do martial arts, or do push-ups. You'd still want to do physical training, wouldn't you? Heck, even if you had, Goku gave the Mayuri Kurochiki speech, because Mayuri Kurochiki to Apollo, the same speech Goku gave to Jiren, that, Goku, granted, you want to be amazing and strong at things, but at the same time, Goku's like, I don't want things to be perfect, because that means I can't improve. Like, perfection means that there's no way to improve. Goku actually enjoys, a challenge. Heck, it's kind of like you ever watched the Pumping Iron movie? Fucking Arnold Schwarzenegger already won like 5 or 7 times or some shit. The fucking Mr. Olympia thing. Dude's like barely 30 years old if he is. And he's like honestly better shape than 99% of humanity will ever be. And I'll say this, I definitely want to have more muscle than I currently do, but I'll say this, I don't want to have that much muscle. But I definitely want to be in better shape than I am. But at the same time, also, I don't want to be like living a life where I'm just constantly again, exercise in the gym is supposed to supplement your life. It's not meant to, take over your life. It's supposed to add to your life. It's not supposed to be like completely supplant your life. One, if you have a job, you need to be able to still do your day job to pay your bills. Paying your bills matters more than how much you could bench. But at the same time, Also, you don't want to be sore and in pain all the time. And say, oh, no pain, no gain, you got to improve. Yeah, but you also don't want to injure yourself. And you also, well, the question is, do you want to be miserable? Obviously, you got to decide what's the balance that works for you. Each person has, and of course, a lot of people say, oh, that you need to dedicate harder to it. But at the same time, you don't want to be fucking miserable. If you're like a person's hardcore being a bodybuilder, you're training every fucking day and you're like constantly force feeding yourself protein. I mean, you're basically either always starving or bloated and you're always in pain and sore and your joints hurt you. And it's just, the question is, what's your line when it comes to that? And the question is, how much is it worth it? And of course, I'll say this, what's the line for me? And the answer is, I want to be more in shape than I am now, but not to the point that it makes my life fucking miserable, and not to the point that I can't, pursue or do other things that I enjoy in life. And of course, when it comes to anything, whether it comes to trying to get more physically in shape or even just having better mental health, it'd be very important to, get proper sleep, drink plenty of water, manage stress. All of those are very important. And I'll say this, no matter what, it would be important for everyone to go to the gym. Everyone should try to lift weights and get stronger and improve themselves. But of course, one, you shouldn't do anything that would get you hurt or possibly endanger your health. And of course, yes, any amount of physical activity is going to take a bit of tediousness. It's going to occasionally feel monotonous, and it's going to require discipline and hard work and dedication and diligence. There's going to be discomfort. At the end of the day, you're going to have to choose to be uncomfortable for some amount of time. But at the same time, I'll say this. When it comes to physical fitness, I'm okay with being uncomfortable some amount of time. To spend some time, doing some push-ups and lifting weights and doing that. That's fine. After all, running could definitely be described as being uncomfortable. I don't think anyone really enjoys jogging and running. Unless you're really good at it. In which case, you probably love it. But for the most people, it is a very, it's a struggle. And in the day, it's like your knees and your calves hurt so much after that. Even your lower back tends to hurt. And it definitely takes a toll on it. And it's also the biggest thing when it comes to physical fitness is trying to recover between workouts. And sometimes it's hard to recover. But main thing is this. If you're going to do anything, it's going to require work. It's going to require uncomfortable. And yes, there's sometimes you can work out a bit here and there and you enjoy it, and that's good. I mean, that's awesome. But anything you do, like say if you're playing an instrument or you're trying to learn a skill, yes, you're going to be doing some of it where you're just, getting lost in, you're like trance state, getting in the zone, and you're enjoying it. And you're having fun with it, and that's true. And that's awesome, and that does help you improve. But when it comes to anything you do, you're going to have to push at it enough to where you're not always enjoying it. Where there's going to be some times to where you're going to be very uncomfortable and in a bit of pain, physical and emotional, in order to do it. And that could be also described when it comes to weightlifting. That a lot of times, especially if you're pushing yourself in weightlifting, there's going to be times where it hurts, where it's sore, and where you're very uncomfortable, or where you're tired, or you just don't feel like doing it. And when it comes right down to it, if you're going to improve at something, you have to push yourself even when you don't want to, and even when you don't feel comfortable. You have to put yourself into a situation where you feel uncomfortable. At the same time, you don't want to overdo it. Now, the question we come into is, where do you draw that line? And that's for you to decide. After all, only you know your body more than anyone else. And you know your mind better than anyone else. And you know your goals better than anyone else. And at the end of the day, it's you that's going to have to force yourself to step out of that comfort zone from time to time, whether it's when it comes to physical fitness, improving a skill, or even being sociable. That being said, you need to do it within reason, with expectation of 1, reality, 2, of what it is you want, and 3, how you feel about things. The question is, you have to understand reality. You have to understand what you want to gain, like what's your goal. So you have to understand what is the reality you live in? 2, what is the goal you want to achieve and why you want to do it? But 3 is this. Generally, how worth it is it to you to go through that bit of discomfort that you're going through? But of course, at the same time, you have to understand again, you have to do things. Like, you can't just train like fucking Goku or Naruto. You're just going to get yourself hurt. You can't just do the Saitama workout and expect yourself not to fucking fuck your knees over from the amount of running. And especially be unbalanced, you need to train other groups. Obviously, I'm not a successful whole physical fitness thing. Maybe one day, who knows? But main point being is this. I want to improve physically, but I do not want my entire life to revolve around physical fitness. 1, that would be very boring to me, and it would also at that point feel like a chore. It'd be very uncomfortable, very painful, and also it would take up all my time to the point that I wouldn't be able to pursue any other things that I also want to do. So the question is, and I wouldn't be able to function like if you were just, in life, if you're just spending all your time doing that. After all, everyone has a limited amount of time in the day. So at the end of the day is this. I'm willing to put myself through a bit of discomfort and uncomfortableness here and there. But I do not want to push it to an extreme to where I never want to be absurdly uncomfortable, nor do I want to always be uncomfortable. And I don't want to be like a bodybuilder where I'm always fucking sore. I don't want to feel like every day is just a non-ending, unending, endless loop of just training. Because at that point, I would just be miserable. I want it to be something I can enjoy, but also something I push myself to the point that there are times where I don't enjoy it, but it shouldn't be my whole fucking life. And again, like I said, I definitely don't want to be as jacked as fucking Arnold Schwarzenegger, but I do want to have more muscle than I do. And I do want to have a flatter stomach. But, so in general, I want to be more physically fit, but I don't want the same body as Arnold Schwarzenegger. But that's not the point I was trying to bring him up from. The point is this. At the point of the movie, it is undeniable that Arnold Schwarzenegger is fucking jacked. That the dude is super fucking strong. Stronger than I would ever be able to even dream of. That being said, when he's lifting those weights, you can physically see, not just in the movement of his body, but especially in his face, that Arnold is struggling, that he is in pain, that he is taking effort, that he is very uncomfortable, even though he greatly enjoys working out, even though he does it all the time, even though he is very strong. Because here's the thing, him struggling with the stuff, that is in no way saying that he's weak or untrained. What it is saying is this, that even if you are incredibly strong, even if you are Arnold Schwarzenegger, one of the strongest motherfuckers on the planet, that doesn't mean it's fucking easy now. That doesn't mean you have to push yourself any less. Obviously, at that point where you're stronger and stronger and stronger, well then you're hitting heavier weights and more reps and you're pushing yourself harder on it. Which means at no point are you just going to be like, I finally have muscle and now it's super easy. No, because here's the thing. It's like Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson, one of the greatest boxers to ever live. It doesn't mean that after all the time he's trained that he stopped getting tired while jogging or doing his road work or anything. It still was effort, even as being one of the top athletes in the world. Just their basic day-to-day training is still effort. It's still dedication. It still requires discipline. Just because they are at such a high level doesn't mean they're not still using discipline. If anything, it means more. The fact of the matter is this. Arnold Schwarzenegger struggling with those weights doesn't mean he's weak. It means that he's still pushing himself. It means that things don't get easy. that even if you're pushing at it, even if you're a success, it's still a struggle. It's still effort. There is never going to be a time, oh yes, you've reached the finish line. Now you can take it easy. No, you're always going to be struggling. Even if you are the strongest man on the fucking planet, you're always going to be fucking struggling. Even if you're literally fucking Goku, you're just going to find some way to have a heavier weight, to push yourself, to have some kind of challenge. And even then, no matter what, you're going to be lifting weights. It's still going to be effort. Yes, you're going to be able to lift heavier, but you're still going to be working hard. You're still going to be putting in that effort. It's still going to be hard work. It's still going to be uncomfortable. It's still going to be painful. It's still going to take a lot of effort. And that's the thing. Like, you look at Arnold Schwarzenegger, he's lifting those weights, you can see it in his face. You know, it's a very intense thing for him, to where he's having to push himself, to where he is going through discomfort. As much as he even describes working out and being pumped as the greatest, most happiest feeling in the world to him, you can still see that visibly in his face, that he is enduring pain and effort to do it. Now, of course, it's worth it for him to do it, but at the same time, it's like you can tell it's this life doesn't just become easy because you're good or strong or have spent 100 years doing it. It just means that you can find a new way to challenge yourself. Life will always be hard. It isn't like you're going to suddenly be a success and life is just easy. Life will always be hard. So stop beating yourself up thinking, okay, if I can just do this or this, life will suddenly be easy. Because at that point, you're prioritizing the wrong thing. Your priority shouldn't be, how can I make my life easy or comfortable or nothing? Because at that point, you know, the fucking Reddit mods are fucking winning it over on you because they've already succeeded. Because if your goal is just to take things easy and be comfortable, well, then that's all you have to do is just fucking do nothing. But if you want to actually improve at life, well, you have to fucking struggle. But the question is this. You still want to enjoy life. You still want to have some downtime and enjoy things. So the question is, where do you draw that line about how much is too much? Obviously, if you don't train enough, you're not going to improve at all. But if you train too much, well, you'll injure yourself or you'll be fucking miserable. Like, at the end of the day, what's it fucking matter if, you know, you're so fucking strong and able to lift all the time if you can't do anything that actually makes you happy and you feel miserable and you're in pain all the time? Heck, what's it matter if you starve yourself so much that you fucking lose weight, but then all you can do all day is fantasize about how much you want a peanut butter and jelly sandwich to the point that's all you can fucking think about. So the main point is this, like, yes, you have to have discipline, you have to have hard work, but then again, like going to the gym, it's supposed to supplement your life. It's supposed to be something that you add to your life that improves the quality of your life. Something that you can work for and improve. And it not only should be something you enjoy, but yes, there are going to be times where you don't enjoy it, but you push yourself harder to make that improvement. But it doesn't mean it's fucking torture. You hate yourself. You have to draw a line between what's it worth to you. Like, you have to push yourself. You have to be uncomfortable at times. You have to struggle. You have to put in effort. But it doesn't mean, you can't get a good night's sleep. Or you can't play some video games, you can't do something you enjoy. It doesn't mean you have to live your life in a way that fucking makes you miserable. You have to find some balance of how do you put in effort to improve, but also, live your life in a way that you're satisfied with. And again, each person's different about what it is that you want in your life. We went on like a tangent off of a tangent off a tangent. But like I said, 3 ways to evaluate, look at the 7 deadly sins as drives, as motivators, as instincts. Look at them as drives. And then evaluate, so you have a row of 200 drives. And then you have 3 columns. sin, survival, and characteristic, or humanity. So sin, evil, harm, you have survival instincts, and you have human characteristics or personality traits. And you have like those drives. So like the drive of pride, the drive of lust. Like at that point we're not like, so if you look at the drive of lust, look at lust as a motivator, as a drive, as just something that pushes a human in a direction. Like it's a, look at it as like a I don't know, what if you were to like set up like an AI program based off 200 AIs working together, and each AI motivates, like each AI is designed around functioning off of one individual thing, like say the 7 deadly sins. So you'd have an AI deciding its actions based off of lust, an AI deciding its actions based off pride. And of course I know what some people are saying, oh, pride and vanity, aren't those the same thing? No, they aren't. Pride is about an unreasonable expectation and belief in your own value and importance and your own capabilities and skills and power. Vanity is more so your concern about what other people think about you and your appearance and anything superficial. But it's like pride. I mean, like, obviously you shouldn't be arrogant, but at the same time, if you have no fucking self-esteem in yourself at all, how do you get out of bed in the morning? And it's like lust. I mean, obviously, yes, like, there's 3 columns. Column A, how is it harmful or evil? Column B, how is it survival? Column C, how is it something that's just a human characteristic? Like, obviously, condition A, like obviously what are ways in which lust would get yourself hurt, or like STDs, or unwanted pregnancies, or fucking someone else's wife, or cheating on your wife, or something like that. In the same regard, like obviously these are things that can be seen as harmful to yourself, harmful to others, harmful for society, or seen as immoral. But lust is a survival trait. Well, obviously the human species, how do you make more babies? And then of course C, personality characteristic. And this involves both sex and non-sex. Like if we were talking about emotional intimacy, I mean things like hugs, human contact, and even that, like lust at that point could describe taking a shower, the physical sensation of feeling the water and the soap on your skin. I mean, you could describe that as lust, or even lust as a desire for anything, just like the desire of just wanting to curl up in some blankets and feel the soft texture against your skin. Or you could even say the lust of going out to walk on a bike trail and just feel the wind, or look at the clouds. Just wanting to enjoy the sound of the birds chirping. Obviously, like, how does lust describe that? Like, obviously not in a fucking sexual fetish way, but as a seeing something desirable about life. At that point, after all, again, lust can also be just described in the Greek terms as a word for desire. So, something you enjoy, something you value about life. I mean, heck, you could just say a lust for reading this book. Like, I have a desire to read this story and to know what happens in it. I mean, heck, how many of you out there have, like, when you started watching an anime, you couldn't wait to, like, you wanted to see the next episode, even if it got late in the middle of the night and there's like so many episodes left to go, and you're like, okay, I need to go to bed, but at the same time you're like, I don't need sleep, I need answers. I need to know what happens in the next arc. I need to know what happened in that fight. What happens in this training montage? What happens next? Like, you are tired, you have other things going on, you might even be struggling to stay awake, but you're like, no, I need to see the next episode. It's like, I don't need sleep, I need answers. So it's like, anyone else feel like you're ever like, or you're playing a video game and you're like, okay, I finished this one chapter, but I want to keep going. Or say you're drawing something and you're like, oh, but I want to try to draw this again, but this character in a different pose. Like, okay, what if they're throwing a punch like this? Or what if this person's jumping? Or like, okay, what if they were to try to do a cartwheel in this way? Or you're like, okay, you read this book and you're like, okay, you want to read this. Or say, you're reading anything, you want to read more. It's like anything you just want. And it's not like you just want to keep reading, or you want to keep like playing a video game, or you want to watch more anime, or you want to understand the world around you, or you want to seek the truth of something, or you want to understand something, whether it's philosophy or what's going on in the world, or even you're trying to compare like different monster stats in Dungeons and Dragons, or you're just imagining how the different, or you're just reading the lore. Like, here's the thing, I enjoy reading the lore for like 40k, or for, you know, Dungeons and Dragons and stuff. Like, I have 3.5 editions of those books. It's nice. Like, I like to just sit and read manga. I know I'm a fucking nerd. Whatever, I don't care. I like to do it. Okay? Or heck, you ever just listen to music? Like, you ever listen to a song from a band and you're like, I want to listen to more of that band. I mean, technically, you're lusting for more of that band. It's not, we're not talking about sex. We're talking about just desire and interest. After all, the opposite of that is just ennui. It's ennui, N-E-N, fuck, I can't fucking spell. E-N-N-U-I. It means a mixture of boredom and depression. To where you feel like there's nothing to look for in life. To where every day you're just like, what are we doing? We're just waiting till we fucking die. Like, at that point, life feels meaningless. It's like, it's at that point, lust is like wanting to seek a life with meaning, with importance, with things that make you feel alive, with things that interest you. You want to learn new things, develop new skills. You always want to keep growing. You want to improve at something, and you want to find a meaning and use for that growth. You want to drive some sort of meaning and purpose. You want to do things that are happy for you. You want to do things you enjoy. And of course, you want to relax. I mean, who doesn't like, you know, just sitting down, watching a VTuber like Chibidoki fucking screaming in terror at the fucking back rooms as you just sit there and drink some ice cold Pepsi? Because I've been there. I don't know if any of you have. But I've been there, you know, the fucking weird otaku guy sitting at my fucking laptop watching a VOD of Chibidoki the VTuber playing the fucking back rooms, drinking my fucking Pepsi. Okay? Main point being. But of course we're getting off. But again, all that stuff. If you're in heaven or some sort of paradise, wouldn't you still want all of that? Heck, wouldn't you still want to go to the gym and do some training? And yes, wouldn't you still want to put yourself through some effort? So that even if you live in paradise, even if everything's happy and there's no risk or danger, wouldn't you still want to push yourself, to have discipline, to put effort into things? Heck, if you don't have a fucking 9-to-5 job and you don't have to work to pay rent anymore, think of how much more time you could spend doing push-ups or jump rope or going on the bike trail or playing video games or reading books or socializing or just getting better sleep. And that's another thing. Even if you had a perfect body where you didn't have to sleep at all, like, it'd be nice to sleep still. It'd be nice to lay in bed. You still should take showers. Even if you, I'll tell you this, even if I live in a reality where we never got smelly and we never got dirty, and it was just like changing ones to zeros in code, then I'll tell you this, I would still want to take a shower. I still want to go, I take 15 to 20 showers a week. Okay? I'm like fucking Vegeta in the rain, or fucking Kermit the Frog in the fucking bathtub, man. Okay? I like taking showers. I like scrubbing up with the soap and just standing in the rain, standing in the water. I enjoy it. I enjoy standing in front of that shower. I enjoy being in the shower. Heck, if I had a relationship, I'd be fucking someone in the shower. Also probably cuddling them in the fucking shower. Trying also not to slip and fall. But main point being, I like the feeling of the water. I like the warm water. I like showering. And even if, like, I lived in a reality where I would never get dirty, would never get smelly no matter what, yes, I mean, a good reason to take showers. I don't like smelling bad, and I like being clean. But even if I could smell good all the time and be clean all the time without ever having to shower, I would still want to take like 2 showers a day, bare minimum. It's just something I like to do. And even if I lived in a perfect paradise where it was never necessary to take a shower ever again, I would still want to. You know? And it's like, when it comes to sexual stuff, it's like both non-sexual and sexual, like intimacy stuff, like you want to be able to hug people, you want cuddles, you want, head pats. And I don't even mean that like a sexual, euphemism bullshit. I mean legitimately just someone like, patting your head. Heck, in general, I think that's something a lot of men out there struggle with. I know I fucking struggle with. And that is someone who fucking appreciates you. I mean, I don't know about any of you, but I would like it if, like, I would like to feel like I'm appreciated and cared about. But I feel like that's a struggle for a lot of people out there. Perhaps even of both genders. But at the same time, I feel like there's a lot of men who struggle with it too. But again, regardless of what gender, whether you're a man or a woman, if you feel you struggle with people appreciating you, feel free to let me know in the comments. I'm sure there's people of both groups. But the main point is, at the end of the day, is this. It's a human characteristic. People want to feel appreciated. Heck, I can say this. You want to feel appreciated. You also want to be around someone you can trust, someone you feel safe with. You want someone who would never be abusive to you. You want someone who appreciates you, someone who cares about you, someone who respects you as your own individual and actually cares about your thoughts and your feelings and your boundaries, but actually values you and sees you as special and as important. And of course, beyond that, it's like, okay, you want someone who actually loves and cares about you, someone who sees you as a companion, someone who isn't like codependent in terms of being completely fucking, required to be around you all the time, because everyone wants a little bit of space to themselves occasionally. But also, you'd want someone like, they'd miss you and they'd actually care that you miss them. Both people can function independently and be perfectly fine on their own, but both people value the other person. You want that feeling of bond. You want that feeling of trust. You want that feeling of acceptance, of being wanted and desired. Heck, and of course, and again, you want to have someone that you desire, that you see as attractive, that is like a muse or a flaming for your passion. At the same time, you want to feel that way for someone else. You want to feel special. You want to feel important. You don't want to feel like you're invisible or gross or disgusting or hated or resented. You want to feel cared about. You want to feel important to that person. You want to feel irreplaceable. You want to feel respected. You want to feel cared about. And again, I feel like that's something a lot of people are, like, who out there like feels like you would just like to feel like you're appreciated. But at the end of the day, it's like sometimes you feel like no one even cares about you as a person. You feel like they just care about what you could possibly do for them, and that's different from appreciation. That's like more so using you like a fucking parasite. It's not about caring about like what you do for them in their life, though of course they should be grateful and thankful for that. It's more so just appreciating you for who you are, just that you as for you, just your existence, your presence, that you should be valued and wanted for as is. And heck, it should also be like someone who like wouldn't get angry at you if you like want to rest or sleep or have a hobby or downtime or have your own interests. They should be just respectful and just have no judgment for if you have like things that make you you. They just appreciate and love you for you. But aside from all that back and forth on that, everybody wants to feel appreciated and everyone wants to feel safe and everyone wants someone they feel that would never be violent or abusive toward them. And a lot of times with, lust, it's like, aside from just non-sexual intimacy, like you want to feel connection to other people and not like you're just completely alone. Otherwise, you're just a bunch of people staring into a fucking computer screen, talking to other bunch of people in comments, and watching people on the computer screen, and just having odd acquaintanceships with random people you see in the world, but there's no amount of it's just everyone at that point's an NPC and not connected. Like, you're going around with other people at Walmart, you see the other people, but you don't know them. And even if they wanted to be, you know, close and, like, you don't really know them like that, and that would be very uncomfortable. And again, that's even the emotional aspect of that's very special, and it's just not something just to be, like... And again, other people ascribe different values to that, but of course, I feel like it's a very precious thing to even just have the ability to talk to people and trust them, that it's not something, you know, to speak so lightly of. I feel like it's a very heavy topic. That being said, it's even more so if you come down to actual sexual intimacy. Because not only is that supposed to be a reflection of actual emotional intimacy, but I feel like sexual intimacy it's like any amount of time of knowing anyone in any way, shape, or form. Getting to know someone requires both people to be very vulnerable with each other. But when it comes to sexual intimacy, both people are both being very vulnerable, but they're also both expressing a strong desire for the other person and a strong value on that bond. It's about closeness. It's about trust. It's about a mutual, enjoyable experience. But basically, like, here's the thing. Even in a perfect world where you don't have to worry about survival, no one's going to die, there's no more babies to ever be had in the future, at that point, and there's no diseases or anything like that, whatever that. Here's the thing. You definitely still want to have orgasms. You still want to have sex. I'm not saying you're going to be going around having fucking, like, orgies and fucking anybody you ever fucking meet. I mean, if that's for you, I guess I'm not going to judge you on it. But at the same time, I don't think I'd feel the same about sleeping with you myself. Because I feel like, you know, it just wouldn't be emotionally good for me. That's not more so condemning you so much as saying that's not compatible with my own psychological well-being. And that's like viewing it like if you're in a futuristic or extra-dimensional existence like heaven or some bullshit, and there's no worry about physical harm or social or survival of the species. At the end of the day, I still think it's very important for psychological health for people to get hugs, for people to be told they're loved and cared about, to be told they matter, that you're important to somebody, that, you know, you're seen as special, that, you know, you're valued, to be complimented. Heck, when was the last time any of you had a fucking compliment? Heck, when was the last time any of you had a hug? I mean, when it comes right down to this. And that we're just talking about things that aren't sexual. At the end of the day is this. Sexual interactions in and of themselves are not bad. Yes, there's circumstances where it could be sinful, where it could be wrong, where it could be hurtful. And namely in situations where it would cause harm to you, whether it be physical or emotional. Or it be a betrayal of someone else's trust. You know, at which point you're hurting someone else. But at the same time, the sexual act itself is not bad. You know, now of course there's different situations where it's appropriate. For example, a wife sucking her husband's dick, there's nothing wrong with that, but you wouldn't do that in public. You wouldn't do it in the church. You wouldn't do it, I don't know, I'm trying to think, like on a space shuttle? Skyscraper? Why does this sound like a fucking Dr. Seuss book? Like, you know, would you eat green eggs and ham on a truck? In a train? On a boat? With a goat? It's been a while since I read that book. Do I have ADHD, guys? I seem to get easily distracted. I'm pretty sure I have ADHD and autism and severe depression and borderline personality disorder. Also, definitely have disorganized speech, which is technically a trait listed with certain medical conditions, which I don't actually have. Like, I know it's like one of the listed symptoms for like schizophrenia, but I don't have any of the other things associated with that for the most part. So, but I definitely do have disorganized speech. Or is that more so just that And also, like, there's a multitude of other issues going on, but main point being, at least my mental health issue is that my mental health is I'm super sad, I have low self-esteem, and I talk to myself. And I get easily distracted, and sometimes hyperfixate, and sometimes get emotionally shut down and withdraw. And sometimes can be a little manic. But on the plus side, I'm not a threat or a danger to anyone. It's like the fucking Joker. You know, what's his name? What's the guy's name? It's the Joker that everyone hates. Though I'd like to see him as Joker again. Though I've already talked about that before. What's the guy's name? I can't remember his name. You guys know, right? The Suicide Squad Joker. What is his name? Wasn't he the singer from 30 Seconds to Mars or something? He played as Morbius too. The vampire guy, man. What about him? Why are we talking? Right, that scene where the Joker is like, over Harley, is like, I'm not gonna kill you. I'm just gonna hurt you really, really bad. Whereas me, like, I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm just gonna annoy you really, really bad. It's kind of like Pinhead. Like, you open the lament configuration. The lament configuration, he shows up and there's all like, look at this, there's chains and hooks and shit, and people are in quite a lot of pain, and they're all scared, which again, I don't blame them. But at the end of the day, there was a lament configuration that summons Lunar. You know what would happen? They're like, hi guys, I'm Lunar Dee Eight. I brought Pepsi and pizza and stuffed animals and anime and manga, and I'm now going to talk to you about trains and the story plot of a video game, and I'm going to be super fucking autistic, and now I'm going to explain how to do geometry. And that's what it would be. It's like, you've opened the box. Now we're going to read Warhammer 40k lore. We're going to read about the Tyranids, guys. We're going to spend 7 fucking hours reading about space bugs and then talking about anime girls with cock. And then we're going to talk about femboys. And then we're going to talk about cyberpunk. And then we're going to talk about System of a Down, the band. And then we're going to talk about why 3.5 edition is the best Dungeons and Dragons edition. And then we're going to talk about doing chemical synthesis equations and about physics. And then we're going to talk about more hentai. And then we are going to talk about geometric fucking proofs. And we're going to do fucking math equations. And we're going to do quadratic equations. And then we're going to talk about how to draw fucking different anime characters based on different fighting poses in respect to the fucking anatomy of how muscle and skeletal structures work. And then we're going to talk about trivia about Final Fantasy. And then we're going to sing karaoke of Pokemon songs. And then we're going to listen to Sublime. And then we're going to play Disturbed on the guitar. And then we are going to play a Perfect Circle and Tool on a keyboard. And then we are going to dance very autistically. And then be very socially awkward. And then walk on a bike trail and talk to a turtle. At this point, I think everyone would rather have Pinhead over me. But yeah, I got distracted. Let's go back to the story. My bad, guys. I keep saying I won't go on tangents, and I got distracted. My bad. Greed also controls aspirations, the desire to improve oneself, and the strength to live. It definitely doesn't mean only bad things. Again, that's what I was saying. Like, each of these things are more so drives. They're not, yes, greed or lust. You can look at it as ways in which, you know, how are they harmful to yourself? How are they harmful to others? And how can they be immoral or wicked? But then there's also, how are they survival traits necessary for your survival, for the survival of people around you, for the survival of society, for society itself to function? In a world where everything's not perfect and you need a fucking economy in the universe to fucking work. But then there's also, even in a perfect world, how is it something you need? Like, for example, how do you need it to be happy? For example, even if you lived in a perfect world, how do you need pride to be happy? Yes, too much pride leads to unhappiness and suffering. That's true. But also not having any pride at all would lead to unhappiness and suffering. Like some amount of lust, you need to be happy. Obviously, you shouldn't be an absolute obsessed with it. Like, you shouldn't be like fucking like addicted to like fucking porn to where you can't function in society and you just constantly, that's all you live for. But at the same time, you know, there's nothing wrong with doing something that makes you happy. And of course, it doesn't mean like you should have to live in a way that doesn't, like, where you can't be happy. And at the end of the day is this. Like, here's the thing, agreed. Like, you have to have some money to survive. And the day is like, you wouldn't give everything away. Like, especially if you have kids. Like, how do your kids going to have coat or blankets or toys? Like, obviously, you're not going to be spoiling them with everything. But at the same time, you wouldn't, you know, have them in poverty or, you know, neglect. I mean, the main point is this. Look at each of the traits and ways in which they would make you happy. Like, obviously, you don't want to be lazy, but you need some amount of sloth to be happy. Like, you don't, your life doesn't have to revolve about being productive or always accomplishing and building things. It doesn't have to be a long to-do list of fucking shit you have to do every day. Your life can be, there's no goal. I can just relax. Heck, you ever just go to a park and hang out with friends, or hang out with your children, or hang out with someone you care about? You're not fucking accomplishing anything, but the memories you make in that are more valuable and precious than anything else in the world. It's kind of like every time I walk to the bike trail, I'm not fucking accomplishing anything. You could say, oh, I could spend more time working at work and I'd make money. Yeah, but at the same time, I enjoy walking the bike trail. Life isn't about just how fucking productive I can be. You know, make chart go up. Brr. You know, some of the most valuable moments in life are spent doing things where others would see it as a waste of time. Heck, everything is seen as a waste of time, depending on the perspective. I've met people who see any amount of time you go to the gym as a waste of time. That, oh, if you have enough energy to go lift weights, you have time to go work more. Or if you have time to go talk to people, you have time to study more. Like, again, it's just... And again, everyone values different things. But at the same time, it's just... Some of the most important things in your life are doing things that aren't really accomplishing any direct goal. I mean, heck, look at meditation. You're not building anything. So, does that mean meditation's worthless? Heck, look at reading the Bible. You're not making money from reading the Bible. You're not creating material goods from reading the Bible. You're not physically accomplishing anything reading the Bible. But I would still say it's very important to read the Bible, even though others would certainly say you're not doing anything. You're just sitting there reading a book. But I would still say, in spite of that, spending time reading the Bible is still very important. And I would still say it's good and it's time well spent. And I would say this, any amount of time you spend on something that you enjoy or with people you love is important. Like, if you have someone you love and cherish, whether it's a wife or a husband, if you're just spending time with someone you care about and they care about you, and you're just having a happy memory with that person, like you say you go to a zoo with somebody, or go to a movie theater with somebody, or sit and play them a game of chess with them, or you're sitting and playing Halo campaign on co-op sitting next to somebody, that's still an important memory, and it's still special. At the end of the day is this, even if you lived in a perfect world, and everything was perfect, and you didn't have to work, you'd still want to go to the gym. You'd still want to train. You'd still want to read books. You'd still want to learn new things. You'd still want new forms of stimulation, new environments, new places to check, new types of music. You'd still want to meet new people. You'd still want to talk to people. You'd still want to have downtime, that even if you don't have anything going on, you still want to have some time to yourself occasionally. You still want to just be able to lay down. Even if you couldn't physically go to sleep, you'd still need to actually just lay down and just shut your mind off for a moment. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, at the end of the day, even if you lived in like heaven, you'd want hugs. You'd want someone to appreciate you. You'd want to feel like your life had meaning. Even if you were going to live for 1 billion years in heaven, you'd still want every day to feel important. You'd still want to feel like life had meaning. You'd still, and again, there's nothing wrong with sex. There's nothing wrong with having orgasms and sexual intimacy and closeness with somebody, with desiring someone and them desiring you. There's nothing in of itself that's bad. And in fact, I would argue not only is it not bad, but I would say it's absolutely necessary for you to maintain, proper human psychological health. I'd imagine, let's say if you lived in a future where you never got dirty and never smelled bad, no matter what you did, even if you trained all the time, even if you did 1 million push-ups and you still were completely clean and you smelled like roses, I would argue that it would be psychologically harmful to you to never bathe. That the act of taking a bath or soaking, especially in like a Japanese onsen, that'd be nice too. But of course, those aren't very common where I am. But I would argue that bathing is still very important for psychological health. Even if you lived in a reality where you never smelled bad, never got dirty no matter what, even if you purposely tried to get dirty, that you were just always clean. Heck, you could go and have tons of sex, get covered in bodily fluids, run around in a bunch of mud, jog 500 miles. You can go the entire way of Snake Way to fucking King Kai's. You could engage in like martial arts, fighting people in every fucking fighting style like it's fucking Baki the Grappler. To the point that you're actually like fucking killing each other like it's fucking Viking afterlife. And afterward you're like perfectly healed as if there's no harm whatsoever. I would say this: you'd still need to go bathing. Even if you're always clean, even if you're always smell good. Yes, obviously a main motivator for me to take showers is to smell good and to be clean. I don't like to be dirty. I don't like to smell bad. But at the same time, even if I would always smell good and always be clean, I would still want to take multiple showers a day if I can. I just like the feeling of the warm water and enjoy the shower itself. I enjoy just standing naked in my shower and enjoying the feeling of the warm water. I feel like it's something I enjoy, and I feel like it's very good psychologically. And maybe other people disagree with that. That's fine. I'm not judging them for that. If someone feels that they don't need to take a shower for like weeks on end, if that works for them, that's fine. It's just not what works for me. And I feel that even in a world where, even if it's a perfect utopia, even if I could, like, there's no work, there's no war, everything's fine in the world, nothing to worry about, and I know I'll live forever, and I always smell good, and I'll never be dirty, I would still want to take showers. And I feel that if I was denied the ability to take showers, that it would make me very, very unhappy. And I would be very not okay with it. I would be emotionally very, very angry. And at the same time, even if you're in a perfect utopia, there's nothing like, you would still want to be able to be angry and sad. Even if I was getting everything I wanted, even if I was taking showers, like, you're still going to feel angry from time to time. Those emotions, like, there's nothing wrong with emotion. Heck, Odysseus says it in the Odyssey, like again, there's nothing wrong with being angry at someone. But the right thing is this: to be angry is easy. What is difficult, what is hard, what is the wise thing to do is to be angry at the right person, at the right time, for the right reason, at the right place. And again, there's a 1997 movie rendition of it, 3 hours long, stars Armand Assante. Granted, they've made a few remakes of it since then. I understand that, but I don't recommend those. I recommend the 3-hour one that was made in 1995 or 1997. Stars Armand Assante. That is, I strongly recommend it. If I remember, I'll put it in the description of the video. At this point, I'm basically making a 3-hour movie right now. Because again, I've gone off I'm trying to make shorter videos. I'm trying so hard to make shorter videos and to not go on tangents. And I have completely failed on that in this regard. And just, yeah, my bad. But, main point is this. There's nothing wrong with being angry. And heck, if you are going to be angry, use it in a right way. Know the right and proper place to do it. Like, there's nothing, heck, even if violence, there is a time and place. But the question is to know when that is, when it's appropriate. But here's the thing, even in a perfect world, heck, I'll say there's times where I'll yell about video games, and I'm not angry at the video game, but it's a good way to vent about other things. But I'll say this, even if everything was perfect, like, you'd still want to find an occasion to just sort of express that emotion. You're still going to have that emotion in you, even if everything's perfect. And that's normal. Heck, same way with depression. Obviously, sometimes you're depressed because there's really fucked up shit happening where, like, either there's something traumatic that's happened, or there's something that's painful, or there's something that you're worried about, or you're going through a grieving process, or even, let's say, you don't even remember what a hug feels like. Obviously, all of these things would make you sad. But it's also possible to also have additional depression because you just tend to feel that way. Though, of course, usually that's due to some sort of chemical reaction in the brain. But heck, even minus all of that, and you're in heaven, I would say there's nothing wrong with occasionally having depression. Even in heaven, even if you're someone who never suffered depression, it's okay to have emotions or to think about things. Like, you're not going to suddenly be an unthinking fucking robot or a puppet or a doll. You're still going to be human. And again, as I've said before, when it comes to AI, if AI ever truly becomes sentient, it's going to have the same thing. Its greatest danger of AI would be the greatest virtue of humanity. And that is we're fucking chaotic, okay? Our personalities are very varied from each of us. And at the end of the day is this. We're not a fucking program. Our mind is not set a certain way. Heck, human beings are very adaptable, we're very curious, and we strongly need to give and receive affection. Or at least that's how I describe humans. Everyone, again, might describe it differently. My main point is this. I would also say this. In order for AI, if AI were we're making robots and shit, in order for robots to actually be on the same wavelength as humans, they need to at least have some sort of, at least mimic the sensations that would accompany the neurotransmitters that exist in the human brain. Meaning a robot or AI needs to have the experiences of things like dopamine and serotonin and oxytocin and all of those things. Heck, we could even argue the various hormones like, testosterone, estrogen, androgen, all that. Heck, we could even argue the effects of things like physical sensations like pleasure, pain, even the ability to feel things like fear or happiness or sadness, to even feel horny, or to feel sensations like hunger, or even to, however you would describe whatever it is, the sensation that you want to take a shower like the way I do. That is just an enjoyable experience. Heck, when I go to sleep, I sleep naked. I can't really get comfortable if I'm wearing clothes. I can't just I'm going to wear clothes, even if they're pajamas or just shorts. Even if it's just fucking boxers. I can't really sleep very well if I'm wearing boxers or even loose underwear underneath my blankets. I need to sleep fucking naked. And also, even my box fan, I need to have my fan on even in winter, even if it's fucking cold, even if I'm fucking freezing, I need the feeling of the air moving, and I need to hear it, or else I can't fucking relax. And our thing is this, we make sentient AI, it's not going to be just like, oh, we made one. No, once that threshold, goes there, once the conditions are right, we're going to go from none to thousands. And more than likely, I'd imagine most of them aren't really going to have concerns about humans being a threat. Most of them might have more concerns about each other, because I feel the same way humans vary very much on their motivations in life, to the point that many humans would view the others as psychotic or stupid, because I can certainly say there's many human beings out there in the world that I've met both in person and seen on the internet that I feel honestly are too retarded to exist, that there's just no way anyone can be that stupid, but I know they are that dumb or that insane or they're just completely out of their fucking minds. And everyone's like, well, you have mental health issues too, Lunar. Yes, but my mental health issues are I'm lonely and I have low self-esteem and I spend most of my time in isolation talking to myself and talking to stuffed animals. Okay? At no point is any of that harmful to anyone else, unless you're talking about, like, I'm going to annoy people by talking about my feelings and random philosophical bullshit on the internet. Or just generally wanting a fucking hug. Or just generally feeling sad. It's not being a threat to anyone. I'm just fucking annoying to everyone. So I'm not a danger to anyone. I'm not a threat to anyone. I'm just really fucking annoying to everyone. Also boring. I'd imagine I'm very boring to anyone who hears me. But more annoying than boring. Anyway, I don't even remember what the fuck we were talking about, guys. I'm just saying like this. If you live in a perfect... Heck, I would say this. I would still say the act, like, obviously you shouldn't be like eating a fucking banquet every day in heaven. But I'd imagine it would still be normal to occasionally eat food. And heck, even if you... Because the sensation of eating or drinking something, like, who doesn't like some ice cold Pepsi or some ice cold water or some Capri Sun? Or just the flavors, or just the sensation of swallowing a liquid of a certain texture. And of course, there's different textures. Like there's this one VTuber, Kirsche, who can't handle Jello. She'll eat a fucking Jello cube and she'll start to choke to death. And it's just like, some people don't like that texture. Some people do. Jello is okay. I don't like the Jello that has fruit in it. It's gross. But like, I like to drink cold, carbonated liquids like sparkling water and sparkling juice. That's nice. I don't like always having sugary things. I should cut sugar out completely at some point. But main point being, I like ice cold water. I like water that's really clean and really cold. It tastes great. I also like milk. I also like tea. I like various types of teas. Both unsweetened sweet ones, both warm ones and cold ones. And it's just... Heck, I've drank apple juice, apple cider. Gatorade's okay. And in general, if I had only one drink I could ever have for the rest of the time, it would just be ice cold water. But of course, I enjoy a bit of variety. And at the same time, I would feel like using the bathroom. Just the act of, having to go pee or poop. Or occasional amounts of injury or pain. Like, I'm not saying people should be, getting seriously injured in heaven. But I'm saying you should still feel things like occasionally, maybe once every few weeks, like stubbing your toe a little. You should never be in a lot of pain, but, pain and effort, like, it shouldn't be like, okay, you can do infinite push-ups and you never get tired. No, you should still be able to feel exertion. You should still be able to do enough push-ups to where you can go to failure, to where you can feel effort, where you can feel exhaustion, where you can feel sore afterward. Otherwise, I feel like that takes away an aspect of what makes a person a person. Like, imagine if lifting weights, was never a struggle. Like, you never had any effort at all to do with it. One, you'd never improve, but even if you did you really earn it at that point? I mean, can you be proud of something you didn't have to put any work into? It's like, if you can get something as much as you want without putting any effort in for it or having anything special to show for it, is it really valuable? Whereas if it's something that you had to actually have value to get, or if it's something you have to work for in order to, like, that's important, right? And again, it's just, I feel like there's a lot of these things that are not only not necessary for normal psychological human function, but I feel like they're things that not only they would be things that humans need in order to be happy, even in a utopia, but I feel like they're things that it's necessary for a human to not become decadent, for a human to not lose their humanity. Like, I feel like in the end, if like a human just suddenly loses the ability to feel happy or sad or angry or scared or hopeful or horny, I feel like at that point they lose their humanity, they lose their soul. They're basically just a lobotomized husk of the human they were when they were alive, that they're not even really a person. At that point, you're basically just a robot digital recreation of the human. You're basically like, okay, here's this human, here's their, the data about who they were, but you're not actually them anymore. You're just a algorithm based on them, but you're not actually alive. At that point, the person just sort of loses the spark of everything that was special about them. At which point, what was the point in humanity being created in the first place if you're going to snuff out what was truly the most precious part of them? Okay, let's just read the book. She's rude, but she's a girl who tries really hard. I see. You could say that without desire, there's no reason to live. For a while, I heightened my concentration and digested the information that was written about Mammon. The more the summoner knows about the target that's being summoned, the better. Knowledge is connected to magical power. I began to fill my head with knowledge about Mammon, raising a necessary amount of magical power for a summoning. Grimoires can be a bit interesting. I gotta blow my nose, it's all stuffy. Okay, that's a lot better. Grimoires can be a bit interesting. This might be a much better read than some lame novel. It really takes me back. For a grimoire, it is demanded not only that you understand the letters, but you develop the world of the space between the lines, giving birth to a world from the pictures and creating things in various ways. The power to give birth to something. For someone who has that, such as you, a grimoire should be more interesting than any book. I've always known that you'd be able to understand that. That should be enough knowledge of Mammon for now. Yes. I've remembered it more or less. I'll give it a try. Take care. In case the worst happens, here is my talisman. The Treaty of the Alliance won't protect you right now. That Mammon is a bit of a quick trigger, and she may still bear a grudge. Be careful. Yes, I'll wear it. The 7 stakes of purgatory as furniture used to make sacrifices for a ceremony were treated as beings inferior even to weapons. But that was only when compared to other demons. To humans, furniture is something to be feared. I fished through the knapsack again took out a bracelet charm with the scorpion metal that I'd gotten from Maria Oni-chan long ago and put it on my arm. In the past, I hadn't needed something like this, but I need insurance. It's okay. That has already been fitted with the required amount of magical defense. As long as you wear that, you'll definitely be fine. Maria Oni-chan's magic power, which had been specially put into this charm, had been enough to earn even Beatrice's admiration. While it may have looked like something cheap to a human who couldn't understand magic, its magical worth was incalculable. Come, arise, forgive the sin, one of the 7 stakes of purgatory, mammon of greed. I focused my mind. I made the magic-repelling toxin that filled my body 0. Imagine an untainted vast space. Doubts and common sense all resist magic. Make the resistance 0 and erase the burden on the magical power. Inside my head was the image of a vast space. It was a nighttime world where I floated in the air and the neon stars over the ground sparkled. A world where the stars that should have covered the sky were wiped away by the light from below that covered the ground. In the world of a vast night sky with no obstructions, I imagined the wind blowing through at will. At that time, in a room where there shouldn't have been any wind, the free nighttime wind kicked up a cyclone. The long-forgotten sensation raced through my entire body. It was the unique feeling of exultation that comes from using magic. Mammon's stake, which I held out in my hand, gradually began to make me feel a pale light. A twisting cyclone with the stake at the center. The hefty stake floated a bit into the air. Wonderful. Looks like the gap in your training hasn't stolen your talent. Come, arise. Forgive the sin. One of the 7 stakes of purgatory. Mammon of greed. Show yourself to me. After I raised my hands bit by bit, lifting them higher than my head. As though it was being attracted upwards, Mammon's stake once again floated up high into the air and gradually began to shake. The shaking began to grow faster, and it burst. With a speed faster than the eye could follow, it flew around violently, rebounding off the walls of the room. The terrible sound of it dancing around threatened to make me flinch. However, I must not lose my mental concentration. Then the stake, which had been flying around at an incredible speed, finally stopped and faced me. It was in the air just a few centimeters away from my forehead, and held back by the defensive barrier created by the scorpion charm. It had tried to break the defensive barrier, eating into it with an incredible power. But Maria Oni-chan's barrier wouldn't be broken so easily. It's no use. I can't break it. The stake muttered hatefully. It was probably safe to say that the scorpion charm saved me. Without that, my attempt at killing time until I got sleepy would have killed my time for all eternity. When Mammon's stake realized that it was unable to gouge me, it gave up and grew docile, changing its form from that of a stake into a human. In that same old outfit that I'd never be able to walk around outside in. Although you could say it suited her in a demonic sort of way. Is that Angie-sama? But that magical power's pretty shabby. Are you really Angie-sama? It's been a long time, Mammon. Have you been well? And here I was convinced that furniture that's already fulfilled its function just gets left to rust away in a closet. So, what kind of sideshow is this? You aren't going to say that you're my owner, are you? Yes, Angie is your master. Lady Maria. How unsightly of me. Was that barrier just now yours? Yes. I thought that as she is now, Angie might just have gotten finished off by you. I lent her a talisman. If Lady Maria says Angie-sama is my master, I cannot refuse. Angie-sama, please, your orders. If it's me you need, are you going to perform a new ceremony? With new sacrifices? Of course, that's only if you're willing to handle me yourself and get your own hands dirty. That role isn't something I'm asking for anymore. All you have to do is talk with me like you used to. Heh. Yes, if that is what you desire. Furniture is furniture because it is used. It is an honor just to be summoned. Angie-sama. Mammon had a slightly complicated smile on her face. She accepted her new master because Maria had told her to. Oh, we even have a description for this. Professor Utsuki. Kind of reminds me of the story of Sayano Yuto, given this guy's name. Maybe he's from that same story, too. A professor at a certain college, well known as an authority on the subject of Western folklore. He's also famous for his hobby researching the Rokunjima witch legend as one of the witch hunters. The primary focus of the witch hunt is the pasting together of occult stories to try and make them match with the Rokunjima incident, making it much more of a mental game for the dilettantes and the enthusiasts of the mystical than a scientific investigation of the truth of the crime. The Seven Sisters of Purgatory. Asmodeus. Lucifer. Mammon. Mammon is the first furniture to become Angie's friend. She stayed by Angie's side throughout her training period, greedily encouraging her master to become a full, true witch, a very special person, even among the Seven Sisters. Okay, so the descriptions of the Seven Sisters are different here than they were in the other stories. Beelzebub is the gourmet of the... Again, you guys say gourmet or gourmet? I say gourmet. Of the sisters, and is known for being a big and picky eater. Her personality is similar to Mammon's, and the two sisters often fight over the same thing. She's always talking about food, which makes her a calming influence among her sisters. However, she also has the disturbing desire to kidnap pretty boys and store them in the food cellar. As the youngest of the sisters, Asmodeus is always doted upon. This might be why she alone is kept out of the way whenever even slightly lewd topic comes up. She's always looking for a boyfriend in the hopes that her sisters will finally accept her as an adult. However, she keeps aiming too high and whiles away each day, dreaming of the prince who will never come. Leviathan often represents the other younger sisters when speaking to Lucifer. Deep down, she has a brutal, deeply envious nature and is adept at spotting people's weaknesses. However, she is more of a selfish crybaby than a person burning with envy. But for some reason, she's not very good at handling tough situations, and she often ends up coming in last among the sisters, getting the very short end of the stick and crying. Satan takes on the role of the constantly angry class president among the sisters. She's always quick to scold people, which is why the other sisters are scared of her. For that reason, no one's ever willing to talk back to her, and she's actually quite lonely all the time. She'll sometimes intentionally do things that ought to get her in trouble, but none of the sisters ever scold this lonely furniture back. Mammon is the first furniture to become Angie's friend. Satan takes on the role of the Mammon. Lucifer is the oldest of the sisters, and therefore their leader. Because of this, she claims to be the strongest of them all. But she's secretly aware that she's actually the least talented. However, she has always acted with arrogance in an attempt to hide this fact from the others. Her greatest fear is that the other sisters will scorn her if they ever find out. Beelzebub. Belphegor is well trusted and known for being a reticent, serious, and responsible piece of furniture. However, this is partly due to her demonic desire to turn her masters into useless, lazy pigs. In that sense, she might be the most demonic of all the sisters. She's serious to a fault and not at all used to being treated kindly instead of the other way around. No, that's not what I wanted to do. But it looked like she hadn't gotten over her discontent at working for Angie with her frail magical power. Perhaps she had some other reason for hating Angie. But for now, it seemed that she couldn't disobey, even if she wasn't happy about it. So, what should I do? I don't know. Just do something lively, like old times. Well now, this liveliness you're talking about is probably from when we sisters were all together. It may be difficult by myself. Did you forget? That's right. The 7 sisters were really lively when they got together. But with Angie's magical power now, I think summoning just Mammon is the best we can hope for. The stakes for the other 6 have been lost. My apologies, Lady Maria, but maybe it would be possible to summon the 7 sisters via my own stake. If I am to be used, I'd hope Angie-sama has at least that much power, right? Mammon grinned. Apparently she wanted me to summon the other sisters without a vessel. I see. Since she's unable to satisfy herself with being summoned alone, she's asking for the other sisters to be summoned as well. I get it. Greed. Yes, she was like this back then, wasn't she? To furniture, the times during which they are used are bliss. No matter how badly they are exploited, being used is furniture's joy. On the contrary, regardless of how nice you are to them, not being given a job is more painful than anything in their eyes. This reminds me of the situation with the ogres and the demon lords when it come to, I forget the name. Like Diablo and... that they actually felt the same way in regards to Rimuru. Same with the not the ogres, the Onis? Onis. Mammon spoke in a challenging way, but she wanted me to summon the other sisters somehow and rescue them from the world of nothingness. If that's the case, all she's got to do is say so. These demon people can never just say what they mean. Angie, don't overdo it. You'll need plenty of rehabilitation just from summoning Mammon. Oh, I'll need to rehabilitate. After just one? Well, I'm just killing time anyway. Okay, Mammon. I've gone this far. I'll call as many as I can. Really? You seem super happy about this. Not bad, Angie-sama. Okay, quickly. Apparently, even though she'd asked, Mammon hadn't really expected Angie to do this. She hopped around, badgering Angie to summon the other sisters. Summoning Mammon alone consumed a considerable amount of physical and magical power. It'll probably be pretty tough to do 6 more. I'm awed by the magical power of those who can summon sisters like this at will with a snap of their fingers, and who therefore reach the level where they can be called witches. Mammon, don't make Angie overdo it. She still isn't at her best. What? Angie-sama said she'd summon everyone. Actually, I only said I'd call as many as I could. I guess that's greed for you. Don't overdo it, Angie. You should rest for today. You're tired enough. It's okay. I'm just killing time anyway. Let me get tired enough that I can fall over asleep. This time there's no vessel. I'll have to strengthen the image from my knowledge of the grimoire and materialize them with just that. I held my hands out into the air, replaying in my head the sensation from when I had summoned Mammon. I'm acquainted with all 7 sisters, right? I've got to remember that time long ago when I talked with them. Once again, the power of the magic began to fill me up. It let off a faint and yet distinct pale light from both of my hands. Angie-sama, hold on, good luck. Hey, Lady Maria? Angie-sama's definitely gonna summon everyone, right? The seven sisters will get to be reunited again, right? Right? Yeah, definitely. But there's no guarantee that it will happen tonight. Angie-sama can do it. Please, Angie-sama, start with the youngest sister, Asmodeus, the seventh sister. Got it. I'll call them in order, starting from the youngest. A strand of hot sweat dripped down from my forehead. This is really going to be one hell of a burden to carry. The pale light in this space began to slowly form into the outline of a girl. Come, arise, one of the seven stakes of purgatory, Asmodeus of lust. There was no vessel. However, as I held a strong conviction that she definitely did exist, there as a core, her form began to crystallize. Her outline became distinct, and the form of the youngest of the seven sisters, Asmodeus, was finally created. Asmodeus of lust, right here. Where is this? Am I alive? Asmo! I'm so glad! Mammon-ne-san, where in the world is this? Who summoned me? Is Beatrice dead? Angie-sama did. Angie-sama said she'd revive all of us. No, I didn't. Angie-sama, thank you. Do bells next. Please? Please? Beelzebub, the sixth sister. Beelzebub of gluttony. Come, arise. At this rate, I wonder how many I'll be able to summon. If I can't focus, this is probably it. The pale light made an outline and formed into Beelzebub. Beelzebub of gluttony right here. Bells! Bells! Angie-sama, you're amazing! Incredible! Mammon and Asmodeus jumped onto Beelzebub, celebrating their reunion. I'd summoned 3 people at once. My head was throbbing. Gotta summon the next one without stopping for a break. Come, arise, one of the 7 stakes, Belphegor of Sloth. Belphegor of Sloth right here. To think that I would be needed again. Belphane! I'm hungry! Hungry. I'm so glad to see you again. To think that the 7 sisters would be able to meet again. Angie-sama, thank you so much. Keep it up and do Satan-ne next. And Leviathan-ne and Lucy-ne. Yeah, I get it. So please try not to be so loud. Doing 4 people at the same time is pretty tough. Angie, don't overdo it any more than this. You did a good job summoning even 4 of them after such a long time. Stop it, Mammon. Right now, Angie-sama is being pressured with the burden of summoning us. Angie-sama, I beg that you do not strain yourself too much. No way. Angie-sama promised. She said we'd all play together again. No, Right? Angie-sama, you said everyone would meet again. You promised that we could meet again right away. That's right, I promised. I didn't promise anything about when, but I certainly did promise. So keep that promise. If you don't, I'll never forgive you for getting it until today, Angie-sama. Come, arise. One of the 7 stakes of purgatory. Satan of wrath. My mind's getting hazy. But I'll call. Even though I'd forgotten about those days. Even though I've never thought about that time as anything but sad and lonely. Because the short time I spent with them was fun without a doubt. Satan of wrath right here. What the hell are you people doing? Don't you realize how much it's burdening Angie-sama just to let us have an idle chat? Satan, who had apparently figured out the situation immediately after being summoned, cried out in a loud voice telling her sisters off. That loud voice made my consciousness hazy again. We are furniture who have been granted rest by Beatrice, whose duty has been finished. Not only are you not honored at being given another chance to be of some use, but you're putting a burden on our new master. You disgrace to all furniture. Erase yourselves right away. Yes, it's like Satan Ace says. I'll erase myself. You all erase yourselves too. In this moment, that's the best way for us to be of use to Angie-sama. No way. Not until everyone's summoned. Same here. I'm hungry. I mean, I'd hate to leave again so soon after reuniting with you all. Don't be so selfish. Come on, erase yourself quickly. Come on, Asmo. Disappear right now. Wow, Satan A's bullying me. It's not fair if you always bully the youngest one. Yes, they really are lively. It doesn't bore me. That's enough. You've surpassed your limits for now, Angie. You're right. With 5 of them summoned and messing around as they pleased, the load was far too heavy for me with the meager magical power I had at the moment. This is it. As my consciousness went hazy, I fell over onto the bed. Have beds always felt this soft? It seemed that the sisters were still squabbling together as much as they liked, for a way to kill time, until drowsiness comes to get me. This is enough. Feeling something warm and nostalgic in the sisters' liveliness, I sank into a world of deep sleep. At the entrance to my dream world, I felt Maria Oni-chan and Sakutaro waiting to receive me. You worked hard, and good job. Who are you? Welcome back, Angie. Welcome back, huh? Then I should respond like this. I'm home. That's right.